So we'll start with the roll call. District 1.
Cotw.
District 2. District 3 is myself. District 4.
Mike Bartow.
District 5.
Lynn Longmire.
District 6.
Kelly Morrison.
District 7.
Dave Hudson.
District 8.
Michael Gunn.
District 9. District 10.
Brad Redden.
District 11. Thank you very much. Now, if you look at the agenda, I think it's very unlikely we're going to get through this today. So there's a few things I'd like to do. First of all, I've checked with Rose here, and this room is available on Friday for a continuation of the meeting if we don't finish. Can councilors make it on Friday? Is there anyone that can't make it on Friday?
I have to check.
It's tough for me.
All right.
Councilor Bartow, you're still looking?
I'm just opening up my Google. Computer's got to wake up. So
While he's doing that, I don't want to go past 4 o'clock today. I think by 4 o'clock we're all going to be tired, and it'll be difficult to really pay attention to what we're doing, which is why I want to go ahead on Friday if we can't finish today. And when we break for lunch, I'd like to break for 15 or 20 minutes and then keep going.
I'm good.
Okay. So is it agreed that if we don't finish today, we'll come back at 10 o'clock on Friday then? I think I see a consensus. We'll have a motion on that at the end of the day if we don't finish. So with respect to the agenda, there's a few things here I would like to suggest. Under number 7, in camera, litigation and potential litigation, I think that's the report from the lawyers, and I'd like to move that to the top of the agenda because we want to do that today. So I'd like to move that to the top. And the other in-camera personnel issue, I would like to schedule that for the first item after lunch, wherever we end up being after lunch. The other thing is, I was advised this morning that there's a presentation from Eagle Telecom. Is it scheduled for a certain time, John?
11 a.m.
11 o'clock. I'm told it'll be 5 or 10 minutes long, so that will come in at 11 o'clock. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Oh yes. I'm sorry, the clerk told me there's 2 other additions to the agenda.
One was the Eagle Telecom.
One was Eagle Telecom, the other is the 2021 tax sale. We'll need a discussion as to whether we can do it by tender or what we're going to do about that. So that's DD on our agenda. Yes, Councillor Hudson?
Have an item added as well, and that would be quarterly financial reports to council.
Okay, maybe we could deal with that while we're going through the quarterly reports as well. But I'll put it on as a special item, a separate item, which will be FF. But I imagine we could raise that in conjunction when we're discussing the quarterly financials, but it will be a separate item. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
I would like to add tenders and job applications.
I've got that as GG. Anything else? Yes, Councilor.
May I also add a request for our CAO to provide clarity on the Gordonstone project, all documents. Do I need to itemize those, or?
Would you say that again?
I guess I'll just simply say, just request for clarity on the Gordonstone project and as well the waste transfer.
Clarity on Gordonston. And what was the second part?
The same request for waste transfer clarification.
Are those two separate items?
Yes.
Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. This is a very enjoyable exercise when you're creating an agenda off the top. I'm just wondering about the last suggestions. Clarification of waste. I cannot prepare myself for that because I don't know what those words mean. Others have suggested items and there's a certain degree of clarity to them, but I'm not sure what, if somebody said to me, clarify waste, I really don't know what I would do.
I understand completely what you're saying, Councillor Morrison, and if that's going to be put on the agenda, perhaps you could raise that at the beginning of the discussion, and the discussion may not go very far, I don't know. But I don't know enough about it now to put it on or off the agenda, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Deputy Warden Gunn, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor say aye.
Whoa.
Oh. Sorry?
We've had a motion.
Yeah.
Is there no call for discussion?
Oh, okay. Discussion, sure. Go ahead, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. I've been considering for quite some time now the macro and micro implications of our agenda writ large. At this particular time in our meeting, this is where we consider our agenda. We do so in session assembly. We bear in mind the thoughts we formed when we read the proposed agenda at home over the past days, and we will now bear in mind the many items that have been inserted into the agenda and indeed have taken place of pride and precedence over the ones that were printed. I'm compelled to comment on what is before us, what has been suggested as the day's business. My remarks are entirely within the context of the proposed agenda and of the need for good governance and good government, of orderly procedure, of congeniality, and of positivism. Our agenda has many items. And of course, there's not a coherent whole because we deal with multifaceted matters. There are diverse views, I would suggest, on these items. Challenges sometimes cause confusion and uncertainty, cause wavering of desire and a tendency to decide matters without adequate preparation, reading, or comprehension. I would hope that in the carrying out of our agenda today, we are not subject to arbitrary decisions about how many times we can speak, and that movers of motions don't call for the question, which necessitates a cutting off of debate. Traditionally, we have permitted our colleagues to speak. Our proposed agenda for this session is diverse and in most cases not adaptable to efficient resolution within the atmosphere that has been created over the past 6 or 7 weeks. as communicated to me by some colleagues and by folks from various districts. There are subjects in our tentative agenda, our suggested agenda, which could properly, in my view, be introduced and discussed in a reasonable manner in one or more workshops. I feel that we might shortchange items, and that's not desirable. The tone of some of the words in our agenda and in the many emails we have read over the past week stand in danger of being considered by some as less than courteous. We have to be courteous. We have to be thoughtful. And we have to be collegial. Or we will steady the course and find ourselves retreating from good government. We must also take into consideration those who serve us through the CAO, the staff. And I cannot, in all good judgment, in keeping with my oath to act in the best interest of our county, vote in favor of the adoption of the agenda as currently constituted. I indicated at the beginning that I looked at the agenda from a macro point of view, and to be quite sincere, I don't know where we're going. I don't know what our path is. And I'm wondering if the warden, at an appropriate time, could give us some words about his strategic thoughts about what the aim is, what the end game is. What is the goal, not only of our deliberations, but the manner in which we are carrying out our deliberations, which is not a pleasant manner. And I, for one, and I may be the only one, am very uncomfortable. Our first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, said that forms are things. In our lives and in our deliberations, there is still room for hope. Hope for civility, for polite conversation. Hope for less peremptory directives, and above all, for care and compassion, for the hope, the well-being, and the health of those we serve. We have a chance to do good. Let's not squander it. Thank you.
Are there any other comments on the agenda as amended? Yes, Councillor Cotw.
I appreciate the fact is that we can add things to the agenda. This is a new council. We have questions. No question. This is a stupid question according to the workshop we just took. And I think that any time any councillor has a question, we should be able to put down the agenda. If it goes to, when we talk about the subject, if it gets pointed over to a workshop that we plan on having down the road, that's the way it goes. But we should be able to ask questions because that's why we were voted here. Thank you.
Any other comments on the agenda, Deputy Warden?
Thank you very much. You know, we follow Robert's Rules of Order, right? That's what this council has adopted years ago. As a matter of fact, council, the municipality, gave me this book to follow Robert's Rules of Order. Clearly states that speech limits, and you debate twice. We said that people can speak 3 times. And if they really have something pertinent to say, you know, the chair can let them speak a 4th, even a 5th, if it's going to be pertinent. But a lot of the times we can get caught up in people not paying attention, not getting the question, not hearing the answer, and it comes back again. So, for the sense of expediency in meetings, I think we really need to limit the amount of times a person can, or a councillor can speak to a particular subject. Thank you.
Any other comments on the agenda as amended? Councillor Crouch.
Thank you. I don't think that these are mutually exclusive. I take Councillor Conlon's comments. I don't think that's what, I don't mean to speak for Alex, for Councillor Morrison rather, but I think they were mutually exclusive topics. I don't think that's perhaps what Councillor Morrison was referring to. And that's my interpretation.
Thank you. Any other comments on the agenda as amended?
Sure.
Councillor LeBlanc.
My takeaway from all that was we have a new council which have a lot of questions. And the questions need to be where we speak of only one item at a time, because it's going to cost more than 3 questions maybe per person, which it should happen. However, if we initiated workshops so that we could set in a setting where everyone would be asking 100 questions that they have to. No question is a dumb question. We already know that because we need to move on as a council, and we need everybody on council to know what they need to know and ask what they need to ask. So that's the takeaway that I got from the conversation. Instead of spilling it all over, we put it in one agenda so that we can go do what our due diligence is in finding out the information and getting the information. That's my takeaway from the comments. So to me, that's a logical way of doing it. Thank you.
Any other comments on the agenda as amended? Councillor Bartel.
I kind of agree with all that, and I am one of the new councillors, and I don't want to be shortchanged on anything. I've campaigned saying that I vote on things on informed decisions, and if I feel that I've been cut off, I don't feel comfortable with that. The idea of workshops is a great thing. I think that anything should be on the agenda. If it needs to be redirected to a workshop, so be it. Maybe that's the route we take. We don't have to, unless there's something of dire circumstances or emergency, have votes when the motions are put to the floor or the agenda is released. I think that there's ways of properly gleaning that information that we require out of things, and I don't think that we should shortchange that at all. And the idea of the speaking so many times per motion at council or at committee of the whole. Sure, and maybe that's where the differentiate is. If it seems like there's going to be more information flowing from everybody and there's a lot of banter, that we might need that, workshop to deal with it, or strike another committee, and to bring a report back to streamline the situation a little bit. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments on the agenda as amended? If not, I think there was a motion, was there not?
There was a motion.
Who was it?
It was moved by Deputy Warden Dunn, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc to approve the agenda as amended.
It's amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. Thank you. So the first item on the agenda, the next item is the minutes of the November 12th regular Committee of the Whole. Would anyone like to make a motion in that regard?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Councillor Sheridan moves to approve. Is there a seconder? Councillor Barteau. Discussion? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you, and I ask for the patience of my colleagues. On page 5 of 161, the first page of the minutes, about a third of the way down. Gordon Parrish stated that having declaration of interest on the agenda does not conform to county policy, so he will not recognize it. I'm not sure what policy prevents that item from being on the agenda. I thought there was a bit of discussion.
Which item was that again?
Page 5
Right there.
of 161.
Point of order.
Right under also
On the page at the start of the minutes, under roll call, there is bold print also present, and I raised the subject of the next sentence beginning Morgan Parish.
It's just above additions to agenda.
Oh, I see.
Where is it?
Page 5, just also present. Parish at the bottom.
Yeah.
1615, third line down.
Mine are in order. I'm missing that too.
This is under additions to
It's in your
agenda.
right hand.
No, right above it.
Right above it.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm asking, what is the county policy to which putting that item on the agenda does not abide?
Well, I think that's an accurate recitation of what happened. I think, that point of approving the minutes, if you want to raise that as a separate item, you can raise what the policy is.
No, this is, we are asked to approve the minutes.
Right.
I do not understand that question, that sentence.
Well, I didn't draft the minutes, but my recollection is that under our policy for the order of business, that declaration of interest is not on the policy, and I asked, if I remember correctly, the CAO, and he said it had never been on there before. And so I said, it's not on the policy, it's not on there, it's never been on there before. I didn't think it was appropriate to be there, and then we approved the agenda with that removed, is my recollection.
That's great. Thank you very much. So if we, in our wisdom, wish to have a policy that says certain things, we can do it. Thank you. That clarifies it for me.
Thank you.
I have one more. And that is on page 3 of 6 of the minutes. 3 of 6 of the minutes. Down near the bottom, the question was called on the original motion to receive Larry Powell, Lynn Longmire, email dated November 5th, 2020 for information, motion carried, 10 in favor, 1 against. I know we had discussion on that item, and I thought we had some discussion in open session. Am I wrong?
I do remember the motion being made and approved.
But I thought there was a conversation leading up to the motion, and I'm not sure whether that was in open or in camera.
Excuse me.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you. Wasn't that, didn't Larry rescind that, was that the charge or whatever it is, from what is now Councillor Longmire? He had placed that in there, and then we got all into it, and it turns out that Larry had relinquished that or taken that back or said it wasn't right or something. So it was moot, is what I'm saying, that whole conversation we had about Larry Powell and Councillor Longmire was moot because
Well, I think the issue before us is simply whether the minutes accurately reflect what happened, and if somebody feels that there's something here that's inaccurate, then they should raise it. Councillor Redden?
It's good to say, to my recollection, because I was the one who moved us to go in camera on that issue, I recall it all being in camera, as is stated in the note, in the minutes.
Yes?
On that page before in camera, there's a read line that says Larry Powell, Lynn Longmire, email dated November 5th, 2020. There's a motion made at that point. It was moved by Deputy Warden Dunn, seconded by Councillor Sheridan to receive for information. Then you went in camera. You had a whole discussion in camera. You came out of camera, and the question was called on that motion. Your discussion happened in camera. When you came out of camera, the question was called on the motion, that motion that was made. That motion was carried 10 in favor, 1 against.
So I take it there was some discussion, but it was in camera, is that?
I would assume from the way the minutes are laid out that that's what happened, yes.
Councillor Prout?
My recollection, I wasn't sure we went in camera, but I know there was discussion about whether it would be received for information or something else, and that must have been the reason we went in camera. There was discussion. I remember there was quite a bit of discussion on it, but it must have been.
Could have been in camera. Any other comments with respect to the minutes? Councillor Hudson?
I don't know if this is necessary, but on page 3 of 6, and under the DMO training sessions,
Yeah.
it says there Monday, November the 16th. I think that should be December.
That's how it happened at this meeting. That this reflects what you were given.
And it is on the 15th.
It is on the 15th of December, or the 16th of December, but this is how this happened at this meeting.
Thank you for that. Any other comments on the minutes? If not, I'll ask for a motion to, did we amend the minutes? I don't think we did we? No, so I'll ask for a motion for approval of the minutes.
We have that already.
Councillor Connell, Councillor Bartow seconds it.
You already have them.
We already had
Oh, do we?
motion in a second.
Okay,
Councillor Sheridan and Councillor Bardo.
Okay, sorry.
We just had discussion after the
Yeah.
motion.
No more discussion on the minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now, the first item of business is the matter, well, it's listed under in camera, but I assume it's the report that the earlier minutes raised with respect to the litigation and the legal fees. And is that right, Mr. Ferguson, that that's what that's about?
My understanding is that council wanted the cost of the cases, legal fees, and summaries, and I have that.
Okay. Well, I would suggest that we adjourn the committee of the whole to look at the reports, and then after we've seen the reports, we make a decision as to whether we should go in camera to discuss them.
Take a recess rather than adjourn.
So a recess, maybe however long it takes, 15 minutes or so. Do I have a motion to recess while we look at the documents? Deputy Warden Gunn, is there a seconder? Councillor Redden. Any discussion on the motion to have a recess to review these documents? Yeah.
You have to receive these documents in camera.
No, we're going to receive them in confidence around the table here.
The documents have to be protected by in camera.
We're going to go out of session, so they're not going to be part of the meeting. We're going to be recessing them. It's the same as if we read them on SharePoint as under confidential. We don't have to go in camera without knowing what we're going in camera about.
If you adjourn the committee of the whole meeting, you're not meeting.
Right.
And therefore you
We're
can't deal with
recessing
it,
to look at
and you
this.
can't deal with council business if you're not meeting. You have to go in camera to receive this information.
Any other discussion about the motion to recess to look at this information? If not, is there a motion on the floor? Yeah, there is.
Deputy Warden Gunn and Councillor Redden to recess.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? One. Motion's carried. So if you would distribute those, please.
I can't, sir.
Well, just a minute, if you don't mind.
If we are recessed, do we need the recording off?
The recording is off. Are we all set? Okay, we're back on. Mr. Hopkins, are we back on?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've had a short recess, and just to summarize where we were, before we had the recess, the item on the agenda was to receive a report with respect to, from the lawyers, that was to set out, if I remember the motion correctly, it was a report from the lawyers with the status of the cases and the legal fees to date. And the CAO told us that he has the reports. And we indicated, and we did move to go into recess to review those reports because we hadn't seen them before. And for the record, I had asked the CAO a couple of times in the last number of days to distribute those reports in a confidential manner to the members of the council so that we wouldn't have to recess and look at them here for the first time. However, he refused to do that. So he's brought them here, and so there was a motion to recess so that we could look at these documents in a confidential manner, not discuss them, but just look at them, and then we could have a motion to determine whether we should go in camera with respect to these documents, or whether we should go in camera with respect to all of the documents and then have a discussion in camera, or whether the discussion should be in open session. At that point, the CAO stood up and walked out of the meeting and said that he would not agree to that. He said it wasn't, I forget exactly what he said, it wasn't the proper way to conduct a meeting.
If it helps clarify what I did say.
No, let me finish. You can clarify it later. I will say, and I do want to say, that one of the aspects of this report are the legal fees to date on the litigation. And I know that the residents of this county have been curious and wanted to know how much money that this county has been spending on legal fees for months. I remember long before I was a counselor or thinking about running, I spoke to my counselor at the time about how much money are we spending for legal fees, and he said, well, we're trying to find out, but we haven't found out yet. And that was in the year 2019. So now we have a report, and it's going to contain the legal fees. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it says. I don't know how accurate it is. But if we go in camera, then that's going to be another way to hide from the residents of this municipality the amount of money, taxpayers' money, that is being spent on lawyers. And maybe we will go in camera, maybe we won't. I don't think the legal fees should be in camera, that's for sure. Whether the reports from the lawyers with respect to the status of the lawsuit should be in camera, maybe, maybe not. I have to look at it. If it's simply a report that pleadings are closed and documents are exchanged and trial date hasn't been set, there's no reason that can't be made public. I haven't seen the documents. So I myself can't agree to go in camera to basically then hide the legal fees to date and possibly keep from the public information that they should have. So that's why these documents should have been, in my mind, distributed earlier confidentially, and why now at this point in time for council to act with some knowledge and information, council needs to review these documents and then decide whether to go in camera. Review them without discussion. Now, does anyone else of the council wish to speak to this I think I'll recognize the councilors before I do you, Mr. CAO. Councilor Prout?
My comment would be that we're at an impasse. With Chair's permission, I would make a motion that we go in camera to move it along. And then, otherwise, we're at an impasse here. I think we should go in camera and receive it.
You're making a motion?
I would make that motion.
Is there a seconder on that motion? I don't see one at the moment.
Okay.
I have a question I wanted to ask the CAO, and if you don't mind. I see Councilor Redden, but if we go in camera and we look at something and we say to ourselves, this shouldn't be in camera, can we come out of camera and say we want to make public everything that we saw in camera? There was no reason to be in camera. Does anybody know the answer to that question? I would think council has the right to do that, but I don't know for certain, to be honest with you. Councilor Redden?
I guess that would have been my amendment to the motion that has been presented, would that we go in camera, review the documents, come out of camera, and then there decide whether we present that information publicly, or we go back in camera to discuss it further.
Mr. CAO, what's your view as to whether we can go in camera, receive information, and then come out of camera and make it public?
I sent correspondence on this last week. I had discussed it with our solicitor, and council is entitled to receive confidential information in camera. If it's not assessed through the FOIPOP legislation under the Municipal Government Act, then again, it's not to be released until the responsible officer makes a decision on any private or confidential information. That exercise has not occurred. It's not been requested to occur. So if you go in camera and there's information that's in camera that is meant to be confidential and private, I've already told you that it's not to be released until it's assessed. But I have no authority over a decision that council makes. If you make a decision and that information that is released creates potential financial harm to the municipality, you may put yourself in a position where you may be liable for the release of that information. So all I'm saying is, I've told you where we have to follow the statutory provisions, and that's the way it's set up in the legislation. I can tell you that. But you're your own people. You can make your own decisions. But the consequences of your decisions, if you do it according to the statutory laws, you're protected. If you don't, you may not be. It's that simple.
Can I ask the question again? If we go in camera and receive information, can we come out of camera and say that we want to make the information public?
I believe I just answered your question.
Well, can you just give me a yes or no to that?
I'm saying, I just said that the consequences of the decision of releasing the information in open will be borne by you as individuals and not as the council if something is outside the statutory legislation. Again, the decision is yours. I'm recommending that you stay within the statutory goalposts, but you're your own people. You can make your own decision, but it's not something that's being recommended from the administration whatsoever.
Sure. So I take it what you're saying is that if we go in camera and we come out of camera and make matters public, that somehow we might be liable for that. Now, I know that the Municipal Government Act says we never have to go in camera. Everything should be in public. But we are allowed to go in camera if we want to.
You can go in camera, but you can't get these documents. You don't have to go in camera, but you can't get these confidential documents if you don't.
Oh, we distribute things confidentially all the time.
Not these.
Councilor Redden?
So the 10 or 12 sections of the Municipal Government Act that cover FOIPOP also cover not just things that are done in camera, but they also cover documents that are distributed confidentially. And all of that document release is covered by, has to go through the designated individual. So my question I have directly to you, Mr. CAO, sorry, to Chair, is what is the difference between documents that we receive confidentially versus documents we receive in camera, if they both have to go through the same procedure to be released?
Well, I'm meeting the statutory obligations of what I'm supposed to do under FOIPOP, and I tell you what that is as it relates to your obligations as council. And once I tell you those obligations, it's up to you to decide how you're going to proceed. So if you want to circulate them to yourselves outside of camera, after you go in camera, you can make that decision. But it's not been assessed under FOIPOP. All I'm saying is that if you misstep on those particular pieces, you may or you may not attract liability. That's all I'm saying. And that's typically how this rolls for all municipalities. Well, it is how it rolls for all municipalities.
Councillor Redden?
I can't give you the exact section right now of the Municipal Election Act.
Pardon me?
I can't give you the exact section right now of the Municipal Government Act that covers it, but supporting documents that come to this council, whether we speak to them, if they are spoken to, even if they are not part of our information package and things like that, become subject to public record. Documents that are confidential in there are still subject to the FOIPOP regulations, and they have to go through the FOIPOP releasement procedure. That is laid out very clearly in the Municipal Government Act, and I'm sorry I don't have it here in front of me. I decided not to print it this morning.
Councillor Bartow?
Items deemed to be necessary to go in camera. Who determines and how does it get determined what information is confidential and has to go that route? And why is a lot of stuff that way? Because there is some things that I believe council feels that should not be in camera. But we've been put that way and forced into a situation where FOIPOP's brought up and or liabilities related to our decisions. So I'm just not 100% comfortable on knowing that there's not an excess of information that we don't necessarily have to deem as confidential.
If it helps.
Well, no, just a minute. I'll wait till you're recognized. Councillor Connell?
I think we should just table it.
Right, I agree.
I think we should table it. It's ridiculous. Like I said, for 15 years, I got many packages stamped confidential, thrown in my box in Annapolis Royal, picked up at the office, and most times those envelopes were sealed, but they were held in confidence, and that's what I believe I swore to when I got sworn in, and I just think we should table it at this time.
I will say that if going in camera, a number of people want to know the legal fees. This idea of going in camera and keeping the legal fees away from our residents is something I just can't abide by. So, is there a seconder to the motion to table the issue? I see Councillor Bartow. Any discussion on is there a discussion on the motion to table? In other words, we'll deal with this at some point in time later. Councillor Sheridan?
There's no discussion on the motion to table.
Can't have discussion on the motion to table.
No.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Pardon me, were you going to?
I was just going to, I asked if it was already seconded, but I guess I can't discuss it.
Yeah, it was moved by Councillor Connell, seconded by Councillor Bartow, correct? That the issue on the agenda about the report from the lawyers be tabled. So if there's no discussion, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion's carried. Okay.
So, Mr. Warden,
Yes, Councillor LeBlanc.
now that we've tabled this motion, when does that bring the motion back?
Whenever council wants to bring it back, is my understanding.
Would it come back to the committee of the whole?
Would come back to committee of the whole, I would think, yes. Or I imagine council could do it if it wanted to. It could agree to waive any notice or whatever, and deal with it. I would think council could do what it wants. But I would think if it comes back, it could come back to, normally it's committee of the whole, that's where it's tabled. Councilor Bartow?
Could there not be, if deemed necessary or desirable, call for a special meeting to deal with? And it wouldn't have to go and be heaped back into council meeting again, or another committee of the whole, which were jammed up on our agenda, and we could actually deal with it.
Well, we're still going to run into the same problem at a special meeting. CAO isn't going to want to give us the material on a confidential basis. He's only going to want to give it in
Well, at some
camera.
point, it has to be dealt with and acted on. So, I just think that,
It's solicitor-client information.
We have a large agenda here. We have on SharePoint confidential section. I don't see why the council can't have that information there. Council is the head of this whole thing, and it's our information. We shouldn't have to be held accountable or FOIPOP for to see our own stuff. It just rubs me against the grain to even think about that. And it seems to be a fight, and we shouldn't be fighting to be able to view this information. And we can, in confidentiality, we can go on SharePoint or as Councilor Connell said, that in a sealed envelope in our slots, we can review this stuff, have time to digest it before we meet.
Are you suggesting that we have a motion to distribute this material confidentially through SharePoint?
I think we should. We're taking a lot of our day that is not going to be here to finish everything we're doing. If we could review a package of information before we come, then everybody has some thoughts on it. They can be prepared for discussion, and it'll go a lot smoother.
Well, I've distributed one legal opinion already on SharePoint, and there was no trouble with that.
Yeah.
So are you making that motion that we should receive this report confidentially through SharePoint? Yes?
I would make a motion.
Okay, and is there a seconder? Councilor Longmire. Discussion on the motion to receive this information confidentially through SharePoint. Councilor Morrison.
Thank you. I'm a bit confused. What was it we decided to table?
Oh, that's right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Was it tabling that we weren't going to go on camera, or?
I guess if we table it, we can bring it back right now if we want to. So I guess we would need a motion to bring it back off the table.
I think you table things and put them off, you never get to them. So let's deal with it. It's a hot issue.
So I think Councilor Morrison's correct. I think we need a motion to bring this back off the table.
Prior to any other motions, okay.
I would make that motion.
Okay, Councilor Hudson, is there a second? Councilor Longmire?
But there was already a motion.
There's a motion on the floor that, are we allowed to have that motion?
Yeah, but here's where I think we are. I think that we need a motion to bring it back off the table, and then we entertain the motion to distribute the material confidentially through SharePoint.
Just to clean things up.
If I may have clarity, please, for your minutes, because now I'm confused.
Yeah.
The item on the table was to go in camera under section F, litigation or potential litigation. I don't know when it changed to something else. I would like to be clear on what was tabled. Was it tabled to go in camera?
I don't think there was a motion to go in camera.
That was the item up for discussion, though. That was the item.
That was the item, but it wasn't, it was.
The name got changed. I just need to know how to reference it.
But there was no motion to go in camera.
That was the item up for discussion. The item up for discussion was the in-camera for that section had been moved up to this part of the agenda.
Right.
That was the item for discussion. When it turned into a discussion on legal fees, I don't know, because according to the layout of your meeting, the discussion is on whether to go in camera under item F.
And the feeling of...
Discussion changed into different things, but still the item is whether to go in camera under item F. I'm just trying to keep it clear because you're going to ask me next week or in a month when you go to approve minutes.
Could I ask for...
Just kind of hold on.
No, I think it would clarify if we heard the motion that we just voted on. I think that's where the gray area is.
The motion, what was the motion to table? Can you read that?
The motion to, okay. I have to back way up before I can get to the motion to table.
What do you mean by that? That was the last motion.
The motion was to table.
Right. Table something.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I have to go back to see exactly what it is you're tabling.
So would it be easier for us to retract our motion?
Rescind the motion to table?
It's already been voted.
Pardon me?
That motion to table is already voted on. Right.
That's the only motion we voted on, is the motion to table.
You can reconsider at the same meeting.
We can reconsider.
Councillor, the CL just said we can reconsider at the same meeting. Councillor Hudson?
Yes, if I recall this, the conversation, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe Councillor Proud made a motion to go in council. I amended that motion.
In camera, you mean?
Saying that.
There was no seconder to the motion.
Oh, okay.
There was no seconder to that motion. So,
So I'll make a motion.
So if I can just go back. Councillor Connell moved, seconded by Councillor Bartow, to table the matter of legal fees.
no, I think it was the matter with respect to the report that we expect to receive from the CAO, not with just the legal fees.
I had that issue on the agenda of the report of the lawyers.
Report of the lawyers.
Report from the lawyers wasn't an agenda item.
Well,
That's where I'm.
but it does come from a previous motion of Council or Committee of the Whole, where Deputy Warden Gunn made it. And so there's a request for, and I think I set it out in my comments, there was a request for a report from the lawyers along with the status of the matters and the legal fees, and that's the issue we're dealing with. So there's Councillor Connell has made a motion to rescind the motion to table. Is that right? Is there a seconder for that motion?
I seconded it, so I'll
Yeah.
follow.
So discussion on the motion to rescind the motion to table the report from the lawyers. No discussion. I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay. Motion's carried. So now I'll entertain a motion from Councillor Bartow, which I don't know, did you write it down, Madam Clerk, or should we do it again?
I did capture to have the confidential report placed on SharePoint.
Yeah, to have the report from the lawyers put on SharePoint on a confidential basis. Is that he said? Yeah.
Sounds about.
And there was a seconder for that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, it was Councillor Longmire.
Councillor Longmire. Any discussion on the motion to distribute the report on SharePoint? I'll just ask for the councillors first. The CAO?
Yeah, I think I know what you want to accomplish, and that's up to council. If you go to page 105 out of 161 in your package.
Page 155.
If you look under number 4, this is from the Office of Privacy Commissioner. No councillor can direct a responsible officer or his delegate to disclose information. There's a process on your code of conduct that all councillors signed that talks about the approach in getting confidential information. If council wants it, council can have it, yes, but it has to go in camera first. My duty is to make sure it's protected. When I give it to you in camera, I'm suggesting you not disclose it, but you can make your own decision. So if you want to put it on SharePoint so that you can access the document or print it off or whatever you want to do, you can do that, but it's not something I would recommend until it was assessed. But you'll alleviate me of my responsibility of keeping it protected until I give it to you in camera. And I believe if I can't do that, I've already got a legal opinion on it, that we're at an impasse. I'm saying if that's what you want to do, this is how I suggest you have to proceed. With me suggesting that's how you should proceed, it is not something I'm recommending that you do.
Any other comments on the motion to distribute the report on a confidential basis on SharePoint? Councillor Sheridan?
So what would make this any different than other confidential pieces that were put on SharePoint?
What other confidential pieces are you referring
Other
to?
pieces of confidential information that we receive on SharePoint on a certain time, we have read and shared read on SharePoint. But you're saying this piece is different? I just don't.
Oh, very much. And if you want to talk about it in camera, I'll be glad to show you why it is. But I can't do that in open. Like I said, if you want to release it, it's up to council. I'm not doing this to try to be difficult. I'm trying to protect the process that we have to follow. And if you want to go against the process that's laid out, it's up to you. But I'm suggesting you don't. That's all. But you can make up your own mind.
I'm just confused because if it's in confidence, it's in confidence, and we've received other items in SharePoint that's confidential. So how can one piece be different if it's both confidential? I really don't know the difference.
Councillor Redden?
I'm not sure. Is this?
We don't post our solicitor.
Excuse me. Councillor Redden, I recognize Councillor Redden.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get this worded exactly the right way when I say it. Mr. Chair, is this that we cannot get documents to the body of council confidentially through SharePoint, that in sending them those way, that is explicitly being sent to individuals as members of council? Because they're very subtle things, differences. Is that the differentiation we're trying to make here?
I'm not making any. We receive, SharePoint has a confidential part to it. And that's where confidential documents are distributed to councillors. And I can't answer your question.
Sorry, Councillor Parrish, Warden Parrish, I was not addressing you in particular. I was addressing the chair as an institution.
Yeah, okay. Any other discussion on the motion to distribute? Councillor LeBlanc.
I honestly think that the easiest way to do this is to go in camera, receive the information, go by and follow the rules, and then from there, and our CAO has declared, from there we can decide what to do. We're discussing this around and about, and we could have had this information in front of us if we just go into camera, we decide what we want to do as a council, and then we go back.
But the thing is, then if there's things in these documents that we think should be public, they perhaps can't be made public.
Again, that's the thing that us as a council would decide.
Well, we have to see them to decide, I would have thought.
So if we go in camera, we will get them in our hands.
Right, but then we can't disclose them to our constituents.
We haven't decided that yet.
Well, I asked the question to CAO whether we could go in camera, receive information, and come back out and make it public, and it was a long answer, but I got the impression that we would do that at our own risk, our own financial risk was the...
So there was an answer.
Yeah, and I take it that if we go in camera, then we're not going to be able to release the stuff publicly, and I don't know what's in the reports, but I certainly want the amount of money that the taxpayers have spent on legal fees to be made public.
Well, so therefore you would end up with the same result that you're saying. You would either release it, and the person who wants to release it, it would be of your own choice.
No, if it's given to us confidentially, we can't breach that confidence.
That's how I heard.
Councillor Bartow?
We kind of, it's the stumbling block here, and we need to get over it and set up some precedents for the go forward so this council can actually be a working body and get something done. I think that we need the information. It's confidential as far as not being accessible to the public for financial or other reasons. It does not prevent council from doing that. And I don't see the problem in having that given to us. And I don't see why we have to do it in camera so that all of a sudden we got to take another half an hour to try, and I don't read fast, to go through this information. Why can't we receive it confidentially through SharePoint? We can have a look at it. Then next time we get together for council, if there's items in that that appear to us that they don't necessarily have to be confidential, but they're deemed that way because they're grouped into a big package of stuff, that we can pull items out of that and make a decision whether that is or is not confidential. We don't have to say, okay, yep, this package is either released or it's not. There may be a portion of it that is more sensitive than others. And until we have a chance to look at it, we can't make any decisions. We're talking hypothetical. We're talking in circles here. So we need the information. The councilors need to see it. It's received on SharePoint to the council. It's not to the individual's emails. We're receiving it as council on a confidential link. So why can't we do that? Have time to digest it. Then if we want to come back when we're gathered again and go in council in camera to talk about it, then we have more meat to chew on. I'm not sure if I'm making myself 100% clear, but I'm trying to get that point across so we can move on.
Yeah, I'm going to try and, I've seen Councillor Hudson with his hand up and Councillor Prout with his hand up, and so I'd like to have them speak, and then I think I'd like to try and bring this to a close and move along. So I think actually, Councillor Prout, I think I saw you first.
This is off topic, but we had a timed item at 11. I don't know how that was going to be presented. And if someone was waiting to present, I would just make that statement.
Yeah. Last comment, Councillor Hudson?
Yes, just wondering if this is possible. If we went in camera and received this package and had our discussion, and so that would remain confidential in terms of the received by the council, would it be permissible at a future meeting to put that item back on the agenda? And at that time, we could make it public information if the council so wishes.
That makes sense.
Well, that's a good question, and it's one that I've brought up on the agenda for something we went in camera for last week that I thought we shouldn't have, but I think that's a little different than the motion that's currently before us to whether to distribute this on SharePoint.
I was just asking whether that was possible.
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer. I'll call for the question. All those...
What is the motion? To just put it on SharePoint?
The motion is,
To have
the clerk can read it.
report placed on SharePoint.
Say that again.
It was moved by Councillor Bardo, seconded by Councillor Longmire, to have the confidential report placed on SharePoint.
But it's a confidential report from the lawyers. And I think it should be the report from the lawyers distributed on a confidential basis on SharePoint. Right, Councillor Bartow, that was the idea of the motion?
The idea. To keep it in confidence, but have access.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion two nays, I believe.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
We passed a motion to have the lawyer's information put on SharePoint.
Confidentially.
Confidentially. And the person who will do that knows what the information is. I mean, it's fairly imprecise.
I assume the CAO has them here. I assume he'll give them to the clerk, who will then distribute them on SharePoint. That's my assumption.
So it's the lawyer's information in possession.
No, it's a report.
Okay, so it's a report on,
Well, there was a motion at the last committee of the whole by Deputy Warden Gunn, and going by memory, it was to the effect that we receive a report from the CAO from all of the lawyers with respect to all of the litigation that the county's involved in, setting out the legal fees that have been incurred with respect to each action and giving a status report on each matter.
well, if I may be so bold, that's not the motion. We wanted the lawyer's report, I think the lawyer's report.
The report from the lawyers that Deputy Warden Gunn asked for, it's in a previous motion. I think we all know what we're talking about.
Yes, but please, we all know what we're talking about. And Councillor Connell taught me a lesson. About the first or second meeting I attended, there was a topic, and the CAO read out the motion. And Councillor Connell said, "That's not what we meant." And the CAO said, "That's what you said. That was your motion." All I'm saying is, I think we need to refer, exactly as you just said, what it is.
Can I ask?
So, well, let me just respond, if I could, to Councillor Morrison. I don't disagree. I don't know if I have that motion before me, but Councillor Bartow seems to want to say something.
The agenda item that brought this all to a head to code camera with the reports that the CAO has on his desk. Which item was that was moved up into?
Page 9 of 161, last bullet on the page.
In the committee of the whole agenda, is there an agenda item related to that?
It was not item number 7, is the in-camera portion.
Yep. Okay, so it's not in
And the
any
board
of those.
moved each of those items from item 7 up to occur earlier in the agenda.
Right.
This was the first one to occur at this time, was the item called F, litigation or potential litigation.
So if the motion had said, referencing item 7 in camera, Tuesday, December 8th, committee of the whole, information package to be presented by the CAO to council, that would be the information that would put on, would that clarify?
The motion is actually more specific than the agenda item, which just says the suggestion that go in camera under litigation or potential litigation, because it refers to the report from the lawyers. And I'll say on the record, on the public record, that that's in response to a direction to the CAO on a motion from Deputy Warden Gunn at the last committee of the whole, and that is in our records, and that's the report that the CAO has right here in his desk. And that's the report in response to Councillor Gunn's, Deputy Warden Gunn's motion. That's the report that we're going to have distributed. So unless there's more discussion on this, I think we've dealt with this issue. I'd like to have our report from Eagle Telecom, which was scheduled for 11 o'clock. Is that okay? Can we move in that direction and do? That was. I think.
If I may, Warden, I don't think I'm permitted to do that without being fully popped first.
Sorry. That matter's finished, if you don't mind. We're talking about the Eagle Telecom session here. Is somebody going to arrange for this? David, is there something we can do to make this happen?
Can we take a brief break while I set this up?
Everybody agreed to take a recess while we set this up? Okay.
And this is applicable to all of the zones that each one of you represents. So you can go in and have a look and see how we're progressing throughout the county. We have both the zones, and also on the right side here, we have water crossings. So if you look here, the water crossings are the Class 1 crossings. If we look at, for instance, water crossing 11, it'll take you right to where the water crossing is. We have submitted, it gives you the status, submitted for make ready, yes. These are facilitated through Nova Scotia Power. They hire a third-party engineering firm to do the civil engineering portion of a Class 1 crossing. We also have on this map the multiple dwelling units, as it would also represent business units. So, for instance, this is the Annapolis Royal Inn. If you click on the actual little symbol here, you'll see that it's serviced by a hard cable that has approximately 31 rooms, and it's fed from this pole number 3. So from all this information, which is gathered with a camera that we purchased, it's called an MX7 camera. It's like a Google camera, only it's really for simplicity, it's a camera on steroids. What we do is we drive the route, and we can measure we can photograph all of the facilities, all of the poles, with a 3-centimeter accuracy. And we can GPS locate all of the poles, and we place them on the land base. So each one of the poles on this map has got its pole ID, and whether it's a mainline pole or a branch pole. We have different layers that are accessible as you zoom in and out of the product. Some of them will become available as you zoom closer in. If you want to just take off the water crossings, or if you want to take everything off and just look at the water crossings, all of this is within this pick list. The poles, the strand route is currently based on the make ready that we have submitted to Bell and Nova Scotia Power. It is subject to change based on the responses we get from our applications. We may be denied through certain sections, or there could be some issue that Nova Scotia Power comes up with that requires us to relocate to another route, or whatever the case may be. So I don't know whether you folks have access to this link. I can resend it to John. I know John has it somewhere. I can resend the current link. The site is updated weekly. It is currently up to date. In the top left here, we show where our crews are deployed for this week. They're in CTI 201 and CTI 301, which is really our primary focus right now. We have done a considerable amount of work up in COM 1, which was the make ready we inherited from Mainland Telecom. And we have the remainder of the county is all in make ready and awaiting response from Nova Scotia Power, which is our primary, I don't want to use roadblock, but it's our primary
Grant, could you show
yes.
how you could zoom in and actually get a house address?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a little search tool up here. You can type in an address. John, give me an address.
752 St. George Street, Annapolis Royal.
See my typing skills. So the address comes up here, you can see, and you just simply click on it, and it takes you right to the address.
That's our municipal office, but you can do that for any property in the county.
You can do that for any address within that is within the county. So anybody can check to see if they, and we have a neck down version of this website that has been provided to Seaside Communications to give customers the opportunity to look at the mapping, to see where the cabling is, and to pre-register for services. So This one is, this one has a considerably more detail in it for the county folks. So, any questions regarding the website? The outside lines, these lines here, the green and the yellow, or the gold and the purple, these are the distribution areas. You're going to have an equipment look.
There's one question, Grant, sorry. Would you ask them how residents can get in just to do that?
Yes, Grant, we're going to put this connection on our webpage so that residents, if they want to click on it, they can do that. They weren't really ready to do that before, but I said it was important to this council, they want people to see it. The one thing that we want to try to manage is the amount of phone calls that we'll get. As soon as people start to see their posts, it's going to get quite busy for people. So we're encouraging people to go to the site and to pre-register with Seaside. The link is on this website. And Seaside also has the link on their webpage, and we've circulated that already, but we can circulate it again, and we'll keep it on our webpage with these two pieces. You will be able to give a lot of information, and you'll be able to register, pre-register. Any other questions?
So how many homes are connected? I know you did some, in the beginning.
There's a pilot.
Right.
Just outside of where the Nova Scotia Community College is in Middleton. It goes on the Twin Oaks Road and Spa Springs, I think are the names.
Yeah.
So we selected people in that area because at that pop location, it's a temporary location right now at Nova Scotia Community College. We have to have another site. So we're testing it. So we did a loop, and we're testing those properties, and we've asked Larry Powell to stay in touch with the residents. They're really loving it, the type of speeds that they're getting, and it's going quite well. But it was a pilot project just to test the system. We've got to move it to the permanent site, and the other pop locations have to be established as well.
So how many homes was that, John?
10 or 11, I think.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman call me and tell me that there's one section that's not being supplied between our county system and Alliance system. So how do I get that in the identification? Or can I look it up and see if that's, no cable's been run in that area?
Okay. Yeah, not a problem. If you think there's a gap, because Bell has gotten money to build, and I think 3 different areas in the county. We were going to build there originally, but we're not now because they are.
Yeah.
So if there's any connections, Bill would be more than happy to make sure that we cover those spots. So if you know the gap,
The guy phoned me and said there's 5 houses being missed on the mountain face of going over from Middleton to Fort George.
And the other thing that happens too is that Nova Scotia Power, when they make ready work, sometimes they stop and they don't finish the next piece. And we can strand to there, and then we've got to wait for them to do the make ready work. So that happens as well. But if you know of any, email them to me. I'll make sure you'll get some.
And also, somebody in Marksville put on Facebook last night that they're being hooked up this week. So I sent an email back and said, is it Seaside? Because I want to find out if it's Alliant or Seaside.
Yeah. Bell's in that area too?
Yeah.
Right here. Thank you. Grant, my question is there going to be some coordination between Eagle, Bell, Eastlink to services, to extend those services further out Route 8 and Route 10? Now, I ask this because I know that Bell is bringing service as far as Maitland Bridge, but they're stopping at the bridge. They're not doing that water crossing there. So has there been any coordination to try to extend any services where those areas that aren't getting service? Thank you.
We take our direction from Hatch, who liaisons with the county. So if there are any gaps, if you can identify them, we can certainly have a look and see where they fall into the project. And as to whether we're coordinating with other providers, No, we're not providing, it's a competitive thing, so, it's, we're not, certainly if there are opportunities to grow the network and bring on additional clients, absolutely. So, does that answer your question?
I have a question. How much of the project has been completed, and when will it finally be completed so that everybody that expects to receive the high-speed internet will have it?
Our biggest stumbling block right now is Nova Scotia Power. They are overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have. We started submitting our make ready in February, and to date we have received out of the 31, I'll call them primary applications, which are each one of the comms and the CTIs. We have 31 that we've applied for, and we've received 2 back that are completed. Of our Class 1 crossings, 1 was originally submitted by Mainland, and the majority of the work had been done, and it was almost 6 months before we got the permit for that Class 1. We have had 1 other Class 1 come back, so out of the 12 that we've submitted, we've only had 2 come back. My current target is for March-April time period to be able to start turning up the CTI areas, because we've made good progress with our make ready through there. The remainder of the make ready is still, we haven't even received it back from Nova Scotia Power with work order numbers. So once we receive it back from Nova Scotia Power, they provide us the tree trimming and the work orders that need in terms of pole replacements, strand separation, all of the issues with the power system that need to be addressed before we're allowed to come in and do our construction. And it's all subbed out to third-party contractors. So we have absolutely no control over that. That's the biggest issue that we run into with the project.
If I can add to what you're saying, Grant, too, and some councilors may be aware, but the connection for the strand and the fiber optic cable to the pole is regulated. And Nova Scotia Power has been given the duty to make sure the regulation is followed. So they have to assess all the poles, and sometimes engineering of the poles, and they have to make sure that the clearing of the trees is within the standards for fiber optic cable. So that's what they have to do, and they've been mandated to do it even for Bell. But Bell has a role because, for the most part, if Bell and Nova Scotia Power are in the same area, basically on poles, Nova Scotia Power owns 60%, I believe Bell owns 40%. So we have to go through both companies, and that's anybody building internet, fiber optic internet in Nova Scotia has to go through that process. Our contract is a stipulated price, fixed price contract, so that we can change the kilometers. So if we're moving very efficiently, we can build more kilometers. We have the ability under the contract. If it's not, we build less. So there's always flexibility in the contract, but not to exceed the money that we have. That's how that's set up. It's also set up similar, so council's aware, that the borrowing was approved through the province, and it's the same type of arrangement that we have with internet when we started out as we do with the Gordonston project, so to speak. There's slight differences, but that's the process that the municipality followed, getting approval from the province.
The second part of my question was, when are people going to get hooked up?
He was saying that he can't give you a specific time on the end because of Nova Scotia Power, but he said in one zone, he said he felt that was going to occur around April.
Yes, the good news story of the day is that we have all of the permitting we need to get out of Annapolis Royal, across the Annapolis River, and up into the CTIs. So we are able to build this equipment location and begin to feed these areas by the March-April timeframe. We still have got, because there's so much demand on all the materials and equipment, the lead times for materials are are off the chart, and COVID was a huge impact on the project. And for instance, tree trimming, the primary company that NSP was using was based out of Quebec, and they didn't want to bring people into the province because of the quarantine period. So they had a limited number of resources in the province to do the tree trimming for not just the county, but for all of the other carriers that are out there trying to facilitate this service to underserved areas.
So it's a 2-year contract from the point that it started, but there are aspects of the contract that take into consideration whether or not Nova Scotia Power is ready to allow things to connect. So the contract is dependent on that process on a time period. So it's hard for us to give you an exact time period, but it is a 2-year contract.
In regards to the price of materials, has the price gone up because of COVID? Because a lot of other suppliers.
Yeah, that's a good question. Have you been experiencing costs to increase due to COVID for equipment?
No.
That's good news.
No.
Any other questions? Good. Grant, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a great day and stay safe, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, if you have any questions or concerns, please let John know, and they'll come to me, and I can answer them as quick as possible.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. So are we on? And I guess we'll go to the first item on the agenda, the Fundy Folk Association grant application, which is on page 13 of 161. There's a recommended action.
I move council approve a grant in the amount of $1,829.41 from the Capital Projects Assistance Program, small project matching grants to the Funding Folk Association, Evergreen Theater, to assist with the installation of a heat pump and insulation of the floor and ceiling for the theater in accordance to AM-1.4.9 community grants.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Connell, discussion? Councillor Sheridan?
So I just had a question in regards to what was left in the community grants funding. Because when we did it the last time, there was a little bit of confusion on how much money was left in that budget. And it came back to us that, well, I thought when we left it, there was still over $10,000 left in that pot of money. So I'm looking here and it says there's only $1,800 left in there. So I guess I was just looking for clarification on the amount of money that was left in there, because I must have missed something in keeping track of. I guess I'm just lost on the amount that's left in that reserve. And the second part of that question is, I thought they had a request, and it could have been over a year ago, but I do recall them having a request in and possibly they are able to apply for this again. So I was just wondering if I get clarification on those two questions.
Well, I can address the first part.
Sorry?
I can address her first question.
All right, go ahead.
The $10,000 came out of that as your first of 5-year contributions to the Soldiers Memorial Hospital Foundation?
That's where that money came from?
Yeah.
So they did get their check forwarded on to?
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay. Because I haven't heard that. Okay, thank you. That's why it went down.
Was there a second part to your question?
Well, I was just looking for clarification if they received a grant within the year, other than this one.
If this is their second application, is what you're asking?
Yeah, because I thought I saw one a while ago, but it could have been 12 months ago, because the time goes by fast.
I did look back to see in your original grants to see if one had been provided to Evergreen. You had provided one to the Artists Circle up there, but not one to Evergreen Bundy Folk Association, Evergreen.
Okay, thank you for that.
So after this application, we have no money left in the grants.
That's my understanding.
Yes, so, okay, thank you.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you. If we give them $1,829.41, well, then our next application, which I see is very relevant, we haven't got $800 to give them, but we're giving $1,800 to another organization, which is the last of our funding for the year. Does it not make sense that we give them the $1,800 and drop the other back to $1,000, a lesser amount?
What do you mean?
This is with the Fundy Folk Association. They're asking for $829. But if we go to the next grant application, we won't have any money left for that. And one or the other is, they both made applications. The church is not asking for a lot of money out of what they need. So I'll leave that at that. Thank you.
Councillor Connell, did you have your hand up?
No.
Councillor Bartow?
Was there dates on those applications that we could prioritize it?
They are usually addressed and presented to you in order that they are received.
Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, thank you. My question is, I tend to agree with what Councillor or Deputy Warden Gunn is saying, but before I can say anything to that question, my thought when I read through the second application was, I thought that we had already provided money to the Clarence United Baptist Church before. Is there anybody that can...
I think you did. Now, I wasn't on council, but I do go into that church periodically. And I do think, I don't know how long ago it was, but I think there may have been some money. Don't get it confused with the grant to the community hall, which is a separate building.
Yes.
So I'm not certain about this, but I do think there may have been something a few years ago.
I thought it was in...
Councillor Hudson?
Yes, I guess it was just occurred to me. Are these, or have these folks approached funding places, I'll use that word, to see if they can access funds from local associations? The main one I'm referring to is the province of Nova Scotia. They have grants for this type of work. And most of those go through Efficiency Nova Scotia. And it's under their programs, like for heat pumps and installation and things like that. And I'm just wondering, if these people have researched those avenues of funding.
Deputy Warden?
No, I would. I'd be happy to go along with providing a lesser amount.
Any other discussion? Mr. CAO.
Thank you. Churches are a bit of a gray area for the municipalities. Dawn, what's our practice on If it's sort of used as a community center type approach, that's been supported, as my understanding. Is that how it works? So you can't fund the church per se, the church, and I don't think that's permitted in the Municipal Government Act. Okay.
So you can't fund a church, is that what you're saying?
I don't think you can fund a church if it's an actual established church with a certain denomination.
Oh, I see. So the next item on the agenda, we couldn't fund that if we wanted to, is that what you're saying?
It's a gray area because some churches have done some stuff related to recreation for the community, and other groups have been involved, is my understanding, but it's not simply a church requesting money for their own church. That's, we have to be careful of that. I don't think it's in the act, per se.
Councillor Sheridan?
I recall what John is speaking of was, I think, when I first started, we were told that in regards to a church, but if it's acting as a hall, it may be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in this case.
It's still a little gray, but I think it's worth going back to them and talking to them and seeing what can do. If they're opening up to the public generally, and I think that all needs to be put in here, just so that we're following. It's something that the municipality would want to see community participating. All.
So my suggestion would be, one was asked for 2,400, the other was asked for 8. If we split and gave them each half, if it's permissible for the church to have it, would that be a fair thing to do with the last little bit of money that we have?
Councillor LeBlanc?
And again, I don't disagree. However, in the previous years, what we had decided was that when the money is gone, the money was gone, and the next year they would reapply. And in this particular case, that would be probably the best thing to do, especially for the church, or I don't want to call it the church, Clarence United, well, I guess, Clarence Church. I believe that then we can have the clarification we need about churches, and they can clarify it, and they will reapply next year. And they might want to, because it's going into this establishment, they might want to apply for an accessibility grant, maybe, because it is a door. I'm just looking at the pictures. It's in the doorway, so if you look at the doorway, you'd rather have some sort of accessibility grant type entrance.
Councillor Bartow?
If we were to consider sharing money, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because all of a sudden neither project can proceed because their budget is to receive this much money so they can accomplish the project goals. If we cut that in half, we'll give them a check and they'll have to sit on the money until they raise the other half of it to go ahead. So, I think that maybe a suggestion to do these in order of receipt. Maybe, to do it, if we split money, it's not going to help anybody. It's going to compromise both of them. If we encourage them to make application earlier in 2021 than they did in this year, then they would have more opportunity to receive that grant money.
I just want to say that this is my first time around dealing with these things, and am I correct that you said that these grants are dealt with in the order that they arrive?
Yes.
It would seem to me to be more equitable to have a date when every community in the county wanted to file an application for a request, have to be in by a certain date, and then council could decide what to do with the limited amount of money we have, rather than first come, first served, for what it's worth. Yeah? Go ahead.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. Staff, there is a deadline on grant applications. We ask for them to be in by April 1st so that they can be looked at. Council will get one whole council meeting that will just be dealing with grants. So you will deal with all the applications that have been received. You'll see what your budget is for the year, because it's a percentage of your operating budget, and you will move forward then. by times there's money left over. So then as grant applications come in after that, they're dealt with on a one-by-one basis. You'll see that the Clarence United Baptist Church grant is Nancy's RFD number 43. So this will be her 43rd funding application that she's processed for council. You will, just as if I may also respond to Councillor Hudson, Nancy Chisholm is the one who goes through these grant applications with every person that calls in. She's very knowledgeable on the other provincial programs that are out there. She talks with them, she gets them in touch with other people where they can maybe be able to find funding. So these are just because there's money left over and grant applications have come in. And so but you'll get to that in maybe about May. You'll do all the grants for the year because there's a deadline. Then if there's money left, applications come in as they're received.
Thank you. Councillor Morrison?
I've learned a lot of lessons from Councillor Cotw. And I remember when it was proposed that the deadline, if you don't meet the deadline, go away. And he said, I will bring to council every request for my district whenever I get it. And that's how we flowed into using the money later that we didn't use in the initial.
Councillor Connell?
And the communities are no different than our agenda at the committee of the whole. Things pop up at times. That's right. Community halls that all of a sudden have their other funding in place, or maybe they've raised enough money, all of a sudden they say, oh geez, if we can get that extra money from the county, even though we know we're late, but we can do the project now. That's why they come late. Same as the late additions to the agenda. They're important.
Councillor Crouch?
And if I can just add, I'm a little bit familiar with the Evergreen Theater. I try to get there whenever there's anything going on, and anything to do with the arts. This has been a really tough year for them. Now they have embarked on a large fundraising campaign over the last few years to build additions on, to upgrades and so on, and David, he'll shake any tree that he thinks, that will help out, and I know they have really struggled. I think the last thing that I'm aware of they had was on the 12th of September, and it was very limited seating. I was fortunate enough to get one of 36 tickets to see a performance, but they're working hard. It's been tough. I know it's been tough for churches as well, but they were in first out of the two, and the point is well taken. They've cut everything in half. It is perhaps fairer, but maybe neither project will be able to go ahead.
Okay, I think I'd like to, sorry.
I'm sorry, I would be supportive of nothing. I have nothing against the Clarence Church. I've never been in it, but I've been by it.
I think I'd like to move along on this if we could.
Just one question.
Just one last, okay.
Is there any other discretionary fund that, if this is a concern, that we could get on a one-time basis? Like, I'll just ask.
The reserve.
It would have to be reserved. So we probably won't.
And you need a council resolution to take money from the reserve.
So there is a motion, correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
That we accept or pay the request from the Fundy Folk Association. Is that
Yes.
the motion?
You want me to read it?
Sure.
Deputy Warden Gunn moved, seconded by Councillor Connell, to recommend that municipal council approve a grant in the amount of $1,829.41 from the Capital Projects Assistance Program Small Project Matching Grants to the Fundy Folk Association Evergreen Theater to assist with the installation of a heat pump and insulation for the floor and ceiling for the theater in accordance with AM 1.4.9 Community Grants Policy.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the Clarence United Baptist Church grant application.
Recommended action. I move that council not approve a grant to the Clarence United Baptist Church to assist with the replacement replacing the sill on the building for the theater in accordance with AM-1.4.9 community grant policy.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Redden, discussion? Councilor Morrison?
Thank you. I would like to move an amendment after that which Council Gunn read, and in accordance with community grant policy, and encourage the Clarence United Baptist Church to make an application early in the next fiscal year.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councilor LeBlanc. Any discussion on the amendment? I'll call for a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any discussion on the main motion? Any further discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote on the motion, and I don't know if we need to read it. It's in front of us on page 22 of 161, along with the amendment to encourage the church to apply early. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion's carried. It's 5 after 12. Was there a particular time set for lunch, or
I believe they're up there at 12.
12 o'clock?
I think the Southern truck is there.
We're good? So we'll recess for lunch, and we'll do it as quickly as we can. So the next item on the agenda is this in-camera personnel matter, and I would like the staff to leave for this, please. David, do you have to stay?
No, I'm just wondering, do you have to vote to go?
Yes.
So I can
Yeah.
this out?
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to go in camera to deal with a personnel issue. Councilor Connell, is there a seconder for the motion? Deputy Warden, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. So we're now back in Committee of the Whole, and I would move that we adjourn Committee of the Whole so that we can deal with an emergency council meeting. I so move. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councilor Connell?
On a point of order, who moved the motion?
I did.
As chair?
Yeah, I'll sit over there if you want. Well, does someone else want to move the motion then, so we get over this?
Right here.
Deputy Warden will move. Councilor Connell seconds that we adjourn Committee of the Whole so that we can go into an emergency council session. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so I guess we're on the number C, as in Charlie. Did we do that one, or did we just add that?
We're on
Cost of living increases?
4C, sorry.
32, page 32. Recommended action, I move that Committee of the Whole recommend municipal council support a cost of living increase of 2% commencing January 1st, 2021 for non-unionized staff and councilors as previously budgeted.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Morrison. Discussion? Councilor Redden?
I'd like to move to amend the motion by removing councilors from it. They are covered under policy AM 1.2.1, section 6, and it states that we are entitled to 1.7% unless moved separately. I feel that if we are going to do something outside of policy, it should be discussed, and it would be inappropriate to have staff's salary increase discussed at the same time as our own.
Second by, you're making an amendment?
Yes.
Can you tell me what the amendment would be again? Just removing and
counselors from the
counselors?
existing motion, yeah.
Okay, and that amendment was seconded by Councillor Connell. Discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Councillor Morrison, there's one nay, I think. Okay, now, then we have the motion as amended. Any discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion, which would be just for the cost of living increase, just my words, cost of living increase for non-union staff alone. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, D, travel and expense.
Recommended action. Option 1, if committee of the whole is recommended no changes up to the policy, that 7-day notice be given for municipal council to adopt the policy and add an addition that the policy was reviewed on December 15th, 2020. Or option 2, the committee of the whole is recommending changes to the policy. That 7-day notice be given for municipal council to amend AM-1.8.1 travel and expense policy by.
Point of order, please.
Yes?
We can only vote on one motion at one time, and you've just been presented with two.
Two options.
All right, so I think what Councillor Morrison is saying, we should take them one at a time.
Shall I read the first one
Well,
again?
let's just hold on for a second. Make sure that if we're going to do it that way, everybody understands what the options are. And I'm just going to look around the room and see if people understand that.
If it's an either.
I guess what we'll do is we'll move one, and then we can have a discussion on it. That's probably Councillor Bartel.
If it's an either or motion, how can we vote on half of it and then do the next one without giving it due consideration?
Well, we'll consider the second one in the context of the first. We're prepared to consider the second one in the discussion on the first. How's that? So, Deputy Warden Gunn, do you want to just start with the first one, whatever it might be?
Recommended action. That 7-day notice be given for municipal council to re-adopt the policy and add a notation that the policy was reviewed on December 15th, 2020.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Sheridan. Discussion. Discussion? No? Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. So I don't think we need to discuss the second one.
No.
All right. Hospitality policy review. Now, before you do that, Deputy Warden Gunn, it just occurred to me, on the previous motion, Councillor Redden made an amendment about the 1.7% for the councillors as opposed to the 2%, and I just wonder if...
I removed councillors from the motion.
Pardon me?
Councillors were removed from the motion?
From the 2%?
There was, yeah, from the 2%?
It was removed, but I just wonder if that means that the councillors don't get any increase, is that...
We've made no motion for that, no.
Yeah, so that would have to be a separate motion. Okay. I'll leave it to somebody else to bring that motion back then. Maybe staff could bring that back at some point if... Oh, yeah?
Just to add to Councillor Redden's point, it stands at 1.7 unless that's changed to something else. So in the absence of the motion, I believe it would be that it would go to 1.7 in January, in the
I see.
absence of a motion otherwise.
Oh, that clarifies it. Thanks very much. Okay, sorry, Deputy Warden.
41.
That's her. There we go. Hospitality policy. Recommended action. That 7-day notice be given for municipal council to readopt the policy and add a notation that the policy was reviewed on December 15th, 2020.
Second, Councillor LeBlanc. Discussion? Councillor Sheridan?
Just in regards to, on page 43, the signing authority. When I'm reading that, and does it mean that one person can sign, or is it always two people to sign in the signing authority?
Two, the CAO or designate. And
That's on one side, and the other side is, I guess that's just a position, but it's always two to sign? I'm just...
For travel expenses?
On hospitality, is it always two to sign on the hospitality?
If any check goes out, it has to be signed by two.
No, I just confirmed.
Yeah,
That's what it
yeah.
is. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you very much. It's about the alcohol. I thought we talked about this a year or more ago, a couple of years ago. And we had decided that Annapolis County shouldn't be in the business of buying alcohol. So, and I see that that's still in, it's going to be pre-authorized, but I thought our business was, we didn't buy alcohol for people. Thank you.
I think there was an exception to that, wasn't there?
Yes.
I remember the exception. I thought we were taking it right out because I brought up the part that at the time cannabis was legalized. And if we were, I know it's a foolish point for some people, but I'm telling you, cannabis was legalized, and I said, well, if we can buy alcohol for them, we can buy cannabis for them too. And the last warden came back and said, well, the Chinese can't consume cannabis. So, and I said, well, it still doesn't matter. We shouldn't be supplying alcohol, period. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Sheridan?
On page 45, review and requirements, that the municipality's audit committee shall review the hospitality annual summary report by October 31st of each year. I don't think we do that.
I think you're right.
Okay, so that probably should,
I don't know if it's ever come up at audit committee.
No, I don't think it
Yeah,
has.
I don't think it has.
so maybe we could make a motion to the audit committee. Make sure they review the hospitality summary report by October 31st of each year. I'd like to make a motion.
A separate motion?
Well, is this an amendment to the existing motion?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you've got a motion on the floor?
There's no motion to do this.
The motion relates to the hospitality policy review. It was moved and seconded. So we can come back to that. Any other comments on the motion on the floor, which is the hospitality policy review? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now, are we prepared to entertain a motion from Councillor Sheridan that arises out of that? Go ahead.
Did you capture my motion?
No.
Okay. That the municipality's audit committee shall review the hospitality annual summary report by October 31st of each year. And I guess it would be to submit this to the audit committee.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Morrison? Yeah, you said.
I'm still, until the next meeting, the chair of the audit committee. And there is a policy on audit committee that sets out the duties and responsibilities of the audit committee. And I think the procedure we might want to follow, subject to what the clerk might say or the CAO, is that this needs to be put into the policy on the audit committee. Because we can't have, well, I don't think we can have all sorts of other parts of the county saying what the audit committee will do. The audit committee does what it's told to do, and that's in the audit committee policy.
Councillor Sheridan?
Can we amend the motion to restate that?
You can do that.
Also be added to our policy for the audit committee's policy?
Yeah.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Bartow?
Just right now. Yeah, separate.
Did you get it there, Madam Clerk?
No. Who was the seconder for the?
Councillor Bartow.
To add this to the audit committee policy?
Yeah, that's the amendment. Any more discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. So the motion is basically the same as number 30 there on page 45, plus to add it to the audit committee policy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Motion as amended carried. Occupational health and safety policy.
Recommended action, I move that 7-day notice be given for municipal council to readopt AM-2.7.1 occupational health and safety policy as circular.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Sheridan. Discussion? Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the funding increase for the UV treatment facility wastewater treatment plant. And that's
The recommended action, that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that an additional funding allocation of $123,453.64 be funded from the gas tax reserve for the installation of the ultraviolet waste treatment at Cornwallis Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Morrison? Discussion on the motion? Councillor Sheridan?
In regards to our gas tax fund, I thought a while ago we had all of that spoken for, so I guess I would ask Polly or John if there was something taken off of the capital budget and kind of freed up some gas tax fund.
Steve can answer.
Steve?
Through the chair, there's about a 500,000 and change balance on your rate in terms of our 5-year plan. There were initial commitments on the gas tax, but my recommendation to council is to award this because it's of a pending nature that we have to be compliant by January 1st, and then we may have to reshuffle some priorities in future years.
That's what I remember that we did. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I was learning something the other day when I was signing checks that there are different reserves for for the different, what I'll call the sewage systems or sewage treatment systems, and that each one had its own kind of pile of money. And here we're taking gas tax, which is a general amount of money that can go anywhere, and we're putting it into a particular area that does have its own pile of money, so to speak. Can someone address that issue as to why there isn't enough money in the pot for that particular area to fund this as opposed to taking it from general revenues? Through you to...
Sure.
Yeah.
To the chair, I guess my recommendation to council is gas tax is a fairly unrestricted fund, and we have a lot of levity to use that money as council sees fit. Whereas the wastewater treatment one is very specific, and it's a very limited reserve at this point. I haven't got the spreadsheet up. Maybe I do. terms of the current balance. If you give me 2 seconds, I'll tell you what the balance is. Current balance in the sewer reserve is $126,000, so we just about exhaust this reserve with this ask on the sewer reserve. That's why I've recommended gas tax.
Is there a special tax rate for the people who live in that area to fund that reserve for the wastewater treatment, wherever it is, Cornwallis wastewater treatment plant?
The wastewater utility is one utility throughout the county.
Oh, that's
it has several sewer systems, but it's all treated as a single utility. So they all contribute to the operation of each other's system.
So,
Except Bridgetown, pardon me.
through you again, Mr. CAO, so the different treatment systems in the county are supposed to kind of fund themselves from a separate pocket as the operational.
Correct.
Would it be appropriate for the municipality kind of to loan money from one pocket to another, from the general gas tax that can be used anywhere in the county to fund, so you can do what you need to do, but it's a loan that has to be paid back by the people who pay into those systems?
I guess that's at the discretion of council. I'll have to defer to the CAO what kind of hoops we would have to jump through for that.
I think that's a possibility, I do. There are some specific rules on what accounts you can draw from and then pay back. I believe under gas tax, they do have restrictions, but they are a little bit more flexible in the last few years with gas tax. And in some cases, if you buy something with gas tax and then, let's say, for example, you dispose of it, or you sell it, then you would have to pay the portion of the gas tax back. So there's nothing there. By that clause being there, I think the ability to pay it back exists. That's my short answer.
What was it again? Yes or no?
I believe you can. I think it should be looked at closely because the province would have to approve it.
Okay.
The province approves your gas tax expenditure. If you spend gas tax on something, for example, and then let's say you want to dispose of it or sell it, you then have to pay the gas tax pot back for whatever percentage is required depending on how many years you had it. So I believe you can pay gas tax back on that principle.
Can I ask the engineer how much at this time of year, what kind of reserve he'd want to have in that wastewater reserve? You say there's 120,000. And this would exhaust it. What amount would make you comfortable if we didn't loan the whole amount, but,
Well, there's certain rules of thumb in terms of the value of your assets compared to your reserve, and we've never been able to meet those reserve balances. I've worked in several municipalities. I'm not aware of any municipality being able to meet the theoretical reserve balance.
Okay. So the reserve is less than we would want it to be, is the way I take it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think I'll probably vote against the motion because I think that the people that are getting the value out of it, if that's the way it's set up in the county, and I'm learning, then they should be the people funding it, and that we could loan it so that we meet the requirements. We loan it to them from the gas tax with the idea that over time, in years to come, that gets paid back.
If I can provide maybe an opposite example, when we changed or did major repairs to the Cotw plant, we took all our portion, I can't remember the exact figure, from gas tax to help fund compressor replacements or control arm replacements. So it's shared, I'll say, I won't say equally, but as the need arises throughout all the systems, if that helps.
It's shared by all of the communities that we have in the county that do have their own utility.
Correct.
Any other comments? Councillor Prout?
Just reiterating what Mr. McGinnis said, we're sort of under the gun here. This is a federal requirement. That's why they didn't look at any other options to eliminate the release of chlorine into federally controlled waters. It has to be in place by New Year's Day, January 1st, so.
Yeah, my suggestion wasn't going to stop that from happening.
No,
It was
you're-
just where we're putting the money.
So just change from word transfer to loan.
Pardon me?
Just instead of transferring it, we would loan it.
We would loan it to the utility with the idea that the utility at some point would pay it back. So that way it's just the utility people paying for the work on the utility. But I'm a rookie here, okay? I'll acknowledge that.
It's a good question. It's a good question, and typically the only way you can increase it is you have to vote on a wastewater, sewer water tax increase. So council has to vote on the increase in order to bring more revenue in. And typically council is a bit shy, has been a bit shy. They did increase it, but not to the state that the consultant suggested has to be in order to protect your infrastructure. It's never meant that, but it's always been a difficult thing for council to vote on to increase the sewer rate, and that's been why we've used gas tax. It's preventing council from having to, because if you do need the money, you will have to vote to get the money.
Through you, Mr. CAO, to one of your staff.
I'm not even sure if we're committed to take a loan from our gas tax. The federal government and the province would probably have to approve that.
Yeah, it would have to be
We're allowed
approved.
set up a loan.
Okay. Any other comments? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. Yes, utilities are usually regulated to be self-funded, aren't they?
The water utility is regulated.
Sewer's not?
It has to be a fair rate for everybody, for all the ratepayers. And it's regulated by the UARB, but waste isn't.
Waste isn't, okay. But I know we put the utility rate up here a year or so ago, I know because I heard a lot of people complain about it. And how many years, I forget now, our consultant said it would take that, but we had to do that for a few years to get our reserves up to where they should be. As a matter of fact, I remember now, he said, we didn't really have any reserves for a big meltdown.
Yeah.
So, let me, if I may. So are we going to be up against like another bit of a rate shock here in another year? It's going to be if we make them pay the money back.
There's always a risk if you're not funding your infrastructure life cycle renewal that it could create a big cost. There is that risk.
Which we're up against.
But the motion is to take it from.
Councillor Connell is leaving the room. Is he? What, Councillor Redden?
So to kind of come at this from a slightly different direction, it's a federal requirement. What section of the federal government is requiring it? Is it fisheries? Is it navigation? Is it
over here to the
fisheries? DFO.
DFO. In that sense, it might be the sewer that we're fixing, but this is a county that's based on natural resources, and DFO is mandating we protect our natural resources. It's a little more of a broader thing than just our sewers. It's an alternate perspective.
Yeah. Deputy Warden?
Thank you, and this will be the last of it. Through you, CAO, and Mr. McGinnis over there. This is going to ease up on the chemicals we've been dumping in, right? We get this UV system in, we're actually going to save money on chemicals.
Actually, there's two things that we're actually going to save on. One is the chemicals that we use to dechlorinate the water, and the second is the water that we use and meter to deliver the dechlorination chemical. So we'll be saving twofold on the operation.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Is it appropriate I take a vote without one of the councillors in the room?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'll call for the motion then. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, the funding request for the Bridgetown Water Utility Rate Study.
Recommended action is Committee of the Whole recommend that council approve spending $15,000 from the Bridgetown Water Depreciation Reserve to have G.A. Eisner Consulting Limited prepare and present 2021-22 to 2023-24 water rate study for the Bridgetown Water Utility.
Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Sheridan? Discussion? Councillor Morrison?
I'm in favor of this, of course. This is a great consulting firm. And if you want to treat, wait until they present their report and just pretend you're listening to a symphony. It's a treat to listen to them talk.
If I could make a comment from my notes, I thought that the $15,000 for this was a bargain, not that I know about it. But the other question I had was under the first bullet, under the first clear bullet after the last filled-in bullet. They are to calculate with input from staff the required rates to cover the cost of operation and capital cost of the utility for a 3-year period. Now, there's supposed to be reserves, right? So does this motion, or this, I guess not motion, but this direction to this company include calculating reserves as well as the operational costs and the capital costs? And I think I'm getting an affirmative nod from the engineer.
It will take into account a reserve contribution.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? If not, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, the Annapolis County Municipal Housing Corporation. There was a question about the relationship. I think, was that me that put that on?
I can't remember who asked for the,
If it was me, I'm happy to defer it to Friday and keep moving.
I believe it was you.
Yeah, can we adjourn that till Friday? Okay. Because I did have some questions and it can wait. Do we need a motion to adjourn that?
If you can just ask us to bring that.
Defer to Friday?
Yeah.
I need a motion to defer to Friday? Okay, I move that we defer this to Friday. Is there a seconder?
Sure.
Longmire. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Next, Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers Awareness Guide. Did this just arrive, or did somebody bring it?
They make the request of council every year. They have also provided a copy of what council purchased last year as an ad to go in there. Council can't sponsor people, but they can purchase ads, and this is an opportunity for council to purchase an ad of this.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by the Deputy Warden.
I would move that Annapolis County place a, can I go by the dollar price, the 1/10th page ad in the Nova Scotia Crime Star?
That's a cost of $310, tax included.
Fine.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Hudson. I just wonder, how many of these requests do we get?
All three.
What?
2 or 3.
Is that all?
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I would have thought there'd be like more, but maybe word will get out.
Word has just gotten out.
Other organizations can apply for a grant through our grant process.
Right.
But these ones, this is how council has dealt with them. They can't, council can't sponsor an organization, but they can purchase an ad.
Okay.
That's how they.
Any other comments, questions with respect to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Returning officer final report. Mr. Patterson, perhaps it's a little after 3, and I think we'd like to spend some time on this. Maybe we could defer that to Friday. What do you think?
I'm completely happy. I'm more than council. I'm delighted to help, and I know you've got a busy schedule. I'm happy to come back on another day.
Is that the will of council, do you think? Councillor Redden?
I'd just like to say one thing. Thank you very much for sitting with us. Really?
Very patient. So he comes in on his own time because he's no longer employed by.
Oh, I didn't, oh. Do you mind coming back Friday?
I'm happy to.
If we could do it in, we have an hour or 55 minutes.
Yeah, I just thought we might just get rid of some more things and just have like 3 or 4 on Friday, but like there's a lot of interesting questions here. And it'll make a big difference the next time when the election rolls around, what we do.
I'm perfectly happy to come back Friday. I realize your other agenda items have a much sooner deadline than the next election, so it's entirely up to council.
I'd like to defer it and keep trying to get rid of what we can on our current agenda to minimize Friday if Mr. Patterson's prepared to come back. I'll move to defer till Friday. Is there a seconder? Deputy Warden, is there any discussion? Councillor Morrison?
Can we get somebody else to move it? Not the chair?
Oh yeah, would you move it then?
I'll move it.
Okay.
I would like to offer an amendment, please.
Yeah.
Could I hear what we have right now?
Just to defer the report from the returning officer until our meeting on Friday.
And to reimburse the returning officer for travel expenses.
Okay. All those in favor, is there a seconder for the amendment?
I will.
Councillor Sheridan, is there any discussion on the amendment? I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Now on the main motion to defer till Friday, which, any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. And we'll be starting at 10 o'clock, I guess, on Friday, correct?
If that's what you're saying.
Well, yeah.
Normally we would start at 10.
10 o'clock.
We haven't called that second half of that meeting yet, but
Right.
I would expect it might start at 10.
Next is the Bridgetown community rate. Councillor Hudson.
Yes, I'll try and keep this brief because we've got quite a few items left on the agenda. Frankly, I guess I'll start by just going through the comments that I believe you have in your package, which basically says that, from my knowledge, the Bridgetown community tax rates became effective at the time of the amalgamation of the town of Bridgetown with the county on April 1st of 2015. The rates per $100 of assessment on residential and commercial property are 0.7204 and 1.5851 respectively. These rates are in addition to the base tax rates on both residential and commercial properties. From the county's audited financial statements, I will just say almost $402,000 was collected in the fiscal year ending 31st, 2020. That broken down, 297,000 was received from a residential perspective and near 105,000 from the commercial side. I would also want to add that residents of Bridgetown are invoiced for hydrants and street lighting as separate items on their annual tax bills. And also would like to add that they also receive quarterly invoices from the Bridgetown Water Utility for water and sewer services. Now, to put this into a different light and maybe to indicate the significance of this to Bridgetown, these rates have the following effect, is that residential taxes are 70% higher and commercial taxes are 88% higher than those in the rest of the county. So my motion is that the CAO provide a detailed report to council on the Bridgetown community tax rates. I would request that this report be provided at the January 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting and cover the following. Yes, firstly, background information. Secondly, a list of the expenses paid from the tax revenue generated from these taxes during the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2020, and the cost associated with each expense. And lastly, information on when these rates will cease.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Longmire. Go ahead, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. This is very interesting. But the motion asks for a list of the expenses paid from the tax revenue generated. The motion is not interested in any expenses that might be paid above the revenue from the taxes. All the motion asks is you have tax revenue, what expenses do you pay from that? What if they don't match? What if the expenses are more than what comes in from the tax? I would assume folks would want to know that.
I don't know if that was included in your, would that have been included in your motion, that kind of information?
I guess if it was more, it would show up as a negative balance.
Yeah.
But that's not what's asked for.
No, I guess if I could just add there, I just wanted the information on the expenses or on the expenses that were paid from the tax revenue that was collected from the area rates. Whether or not the expenses that were lower or higher than the amount collected basically was not my question.
Yeah. If I could just make a statement here. Councillor Hudson and I had a meeting on Friday with some people from Bridgetown, and it was educational for me to go through what Bridgetown pays for. There's a separate Bridgetown rate, as you know, and I think the outstanding debt from the amalgamation that Bridgetown may be responsible for is around $129,000 or something in that area, maybe, and that's getting worked down. But if you go through the financial statements that I guess we'll be looking at maybe on Friday, in the stuff in bold print is the stuff that Bridgetown is charged to Bridgetown in their special rate. And as an example, in the old town hall building, the recreation department's on the ground floor and the engineering group is on the top floor, and Bridgetown pays for that. That's just Bridgetown people pay for that, but that's the engineering for the whole county, and that's the recreation for the whole county. And the photocopier there is charged to Bridgetown, and all that kind of thing. And so you can see, and I see Councillor Morrison kind of chuckling, and we are opening a can of worms. I think this might be why he's chuckling. But, you know, I do think that there's an issue of fairness here that it would be good for us to look at, and as part of my constituency, including part of Bridgetown, I would like to see a staff report on that as well. My only concern with the motion is that I think January is a little early. I think this is a big job. We've got the Christmas season, and I would maybe move it to February rather than January, but I just think it's a bit of work. Deputy Warden?
Move to amend.
I'm happy to amend it to February rather than January. If you're moving that, I'll second it.
I'll move to amend it till February, if that's all right.
Any discussion on the amendment to February rather than January? Pardon me?
You were the seconder, right?
Yeah. Hearing none, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Now back to the main motion. Councillor Bartow?
Just a legal point, I'm not a lawyer, but I pick up on things, and the way the motion was read was it said what monies were used out of that area rate to pay for those. It didn't ask what monies in total were used, like is there a possibility that monies are used out of general coffers as well? So it might be a misrepresentation of those facts and figures if we're only asking what was drawn out of those generated revenues versus what the total expenses were for Bridgetown for those utilities.
Did you have your hand, Councillor Cotw?
Yes. During the amalgamation, there was a list of stuff that Bridgetown kind of got that the rest of the citizens in the county wasn't getting. So should be a list of what detailed why that levy of tax was put onto an area rate. Because it was discussed at the time, and it's been discussed many times, of other areas in our county that get specific things. Why aren't they getting area rated versus just Bridgetown? So it probably is a good time to look at it, look at what is beyond what our regular citizens are getting, and maybe they're being taxed more than what they should be. Maybe they should lose a few things. What I'm saying is at the time when we amalgamated Bridgetown, there was an accurate list on what got beyond the normal taxpayers that created that.
Yeah, I have to confess I didn't get the whole of the motion as well as some of you other people have with that brisk attention that you had. I'm just looking for generally a staff report to tell us what is in the Bridgetown rate, and so that we can all kind of look at it and determine some equities or inequities or that kind of thing. And I'm hoping that the motion will provide that, is where my head is at. But to Councillor Morrison, I see him shaking his head.
Thank you. The motion will not provide that.
Okay.
Councillor Bartow said exactly what I was saying, except he said it differently. And I enjoyed Councillor Connell's point. What I would like to know is the total expenses paid and how that figure corresponds to the taxes collected. Are the expenses above or below the taxes collected? Here, he only wants the expenses paid from the tax revenue generated. So there might be, I don't know the answer, but there might be a whole pile of expenses that are paid from someplace else, but they're not paid from the tax revenue.
I think I don't want to put words in Councillor Hudson's mouth, but the example I gave, if you were just doing the expenses and the taxes, you'd see that the expenses running that town hall and the taxes are going towards the town hall, but that could be an inequity because the use of the town hall is for the whole county. So it's that short just expenses and revenue is going to miss perhaps some of the discussion of the equities.
Okay, I won't knock my head anymore. We'll have the discussion when we get the report, which will be incomplete.
Councillor
I make
Bartow?
a second amendment to the motion to just to say, instead of specifying what expenses were paid out of that revenue generated, but just limit it to all expenses, I'll break down the expenses, and then we're going to get over that hurdle.
Second.
Is there any more discussion on the amendment? Yes, sir.
The original wording said monies that were used out of the revenues generated by the tax rate. What I'm saying is
a breakdown of the total expenses related to it, not money that was paid for from that area rate. And then it's going to be make it less murky.
Yeah.
What's the seconder, I'm sorry?
Morrison. Go ahead.
And Holly, you may help here too, is that there's a tax rate, an area rate, and a community rate in Bridgetown. The area rates, if I'm not mistaken, are specifically identified for specific things, such as fire hydrants or sidewalks. The community rate is just another rate that the Municipal Government Act permitted you to use. It's basically a tax rate, and it goes into basically general revenue, and it is meant to cover the expenses in Bridgetown. I don't know if we may be able to, but I'm not sure. I think we just take it all in and it just gets dispersed in the budget for Bridgetown. But the area rates we can earmark, as you ask, because an area rate's specific. But the community rate is just really another name for the tax rate. What had happened in amalgamation and the auditor struggled is because our tax rate is basically $1. Bridgetown's tax rate was $2.14. So when you applied our tax rate to their assessments, house values, they had half a budget. So the question was, does the county increase its taxes to pay in respect to the amalgamation, or does Bridgetown pay their taxes based on what they were previously paying? And instead of going to 214, I think we dropped the tax rate to 211, if I'm not mistaken. And this was all supported by the auditors and the people during the transition process. It is a complicated matter merging a town and a county, and it's not perfect. I would say that politically, the citizens at the time in Bridgetown wanted to keep the town hall. It actually received money for capital improvements in the letters of intent to keep it going. And we put staff in Bridgetown so that there would be a presence in Bridgetown, so that the community still felt like they had a connection with the local government. And that was really what was decided at the time. But it is an extra expense. But it comes right down to, council talked about it, but they would really like to have a discussion with the community in Bridgetown, see if they want to keep that building, if they want to repurpose it, if somebody wants to buy it or something, would they be open to that? And you could still have your iconic building, but you may be able to reduce some taxes in Bridgetown. And so those are some of the things that I think you could have as a discussion. But describing how the rates work, I think is a good question, David. It's just the community rate is like saying the tax rate. How much of the tax rate that we collect just goes to here? We could probably do a percentage, but we may not be able to track it right back to the community rate. Something that might be difficult to do, that's all.
Yeah, just maybe repeating what Warden Ferris has said already, that just from an equity perspective, I guess if you looked at what may be paid in Bridgetown with that community tax rate, you would see there would be a laundry list of items that are paid, right? And then if you looked at the municipality as a whole, you would see that some of those items on that laundry list are paid through the base rate in other areas in the county. Okay, I'll use, for example, one of the items on the laundry list might be plowing streets in the wintertime, okay? And that expense is paid from the Bridgetown community rate by the residents, right? The county does snowplow in other areas in the county that are paid from the base rate. So why is the residents of Bridgetown having to pay for something that other places in the county pay extra, when other places in the county it is paid from the base rate, the same service?
Look, it's a great...
No. Am I correct? Am I wrong there?
How can I explain it? So Annapolis County has a tax rate, They have a residential tax rate and a commercial tax rate. So we're just comparing residential tax rate and community rate, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so the tax rate and the community rate is really the exact same thing, but they had to call the addition a community rate. So so basically, Bridgetown's budget was around 2 million. So based on the county's tax rate, it only collected 1 million. So it had the other area rates. In order to make up the difference, it had to add 74 cents or 72 cents to a community rate to bring the budget to 2 million. So the community rate is clumped in with the tax rate and is distributed throughout the budget for Bridgetown. The county's tax rate comes in simply for that. It's no different than the community rate and tax rate process in Bridgetown. It's just that it's called the tax rate. It's a good question, but in functional terms.
What I'm simply saying, John, is that services are being paid from different revenue sources. This is the bottom line there. Services that are throughout the county are paid from different revenue sources.
Right, and so
Bridgetown, through the community tax rate, that is a revenue source, right?
yes,
That is just applicable to services provided in Bridgetown.
yes.
So that's my point.
Part of the difference too is that Bridgetown had its own snow cleaning, clearing operation. As a matter of fact, all the equipment, they really didn't contract out. So they were operating differently than Annapolis County. We did some on some occasions, but mainly we contracted out all our services. So our services never really changed in the county. When Bridgetown came in, it kept the same. And Bridgetown's process stayed the same, other than the fact that their ability to get gas tax was far better now with the county because the small town got nothing to work with. So even in their well, for example, for their water, I think we used gas tax, Steve, 600 or 700,000. So that was the county's gas tax portion that went to Bridgetown to solve a water problem. And so Bridgetown has gotten the advantage of the county's bigger resources, but the county has to then make a decision and prioritize. If we're putting that in Bridgetown, it's not going to go somewhere else in the county, but they've made those decisions. So overall, Bridgetown has benefited from the county's involvement, but it's not fully understood by the citizens how that works. But I think we should go through the process. I think it's something that you would learn from, for sure. Our auditors putting this all together, it was a struggle. It was a struggle. They really had to think about how they were going to merge the two municipalities. It went well. It went well in the sense that people were cooperative and they worked together. Would I like to see Bridgetown's tax rate come down? Absolutely. I think it's ridiculously high. But it was higher, and it was really based on decisions that Bridgetown made over the years that led itself to such a high tax rate. And it's kept property values down because the tax rate's so high. So it would do Bridgetown well. It really would. But that's something for council to consider.
Councilor Cotw?
Some of the discussion that was taking place was, for one example, is in the county, we have a policy to clean county sidewalks, which is different than what Bridgetown wanted. So that was part of the discussion on.
That's right.
Do you want to go to the county's policy where we only clean the sidewalks after the storm stops, no matter if the storm's 4 days long, 5 days long, a week long, or do you want to keep it clearing it the way you always had it? That was some of the discussion, and that's something they do different than we do at the county level. But also when the county took Bridgetown over, the province plows #1 highway all the way through. We never did. We always stopped at, our boundary for the department was the Tim Hortons. We did go into the police station to make sure it was open, but we had no jurisdiction to plow the town roads. As soon as the town was dissolved and became part of the county, the province picked up the #1 highway and across to the 201.
No, I'm afraid that is not the case, for Councillor Long, because the 101 through Bridgetown, and as well as the street going, called South Street going through, is not maintained by the Department of Highways.
Oh, yes, it is. Since we took the town over, since the county's taken the town over.
I see it.
I supervised it.
But I'm telling you, it's not.
I supervised it. We never used to drop the plow going through town at all because we had an issue with the same as town of Middleton. We do not plow the town of Middleton. But since then, the province has picked up the main road, number 1. They plow the number 1 highway straight through Bridgetown until the Bridgetown crew comes on in the morning. You check her out. I was there for many years as a supervisor, and I know that. We never dropped the plows until we went out past the ARC. But now they plow all the way through.
Okay, let's bring this to a close unless there's more discussion. And I think we're also kind of in the middle of not figuring out what the latest amendment is.
The latest amendment was moved by Councillor Bardo, seconded by Councillor Morrison, to amend the motion by adding a breakdown of total expenses in the long list.
So that's where we are at the moment.
Yes.
Did you want to say something before we call for a vote on the amendment?
Yes, please. I'm glad that someone raised the building in the community of Bridgetown. From the very beginning of this amalgamation process, a number of us wanted to get rid of it. But we were convinced on council by the councillors from the Bridgetown area that the number 1 thing that people in Bridgetown wanted was to keep that building. And so we acquiesced.
Councillor Redden?
Just a brief point. I'm trying to get my head around the community tax rate versus the base tax rate. And this is more general sense. So is there a base rate applied across the county and then we have sort of like X, and then say for Bridgetown, the tax rate sort of like X plus 72? So if the base rate goes up 4 cents, then Bridgetown goes up 4 cents kind of automatically, or do we have to do them separately?
The tax rate goes up automatically. The community rate would not.
Yeah.
So if Annapolis County said our tax rate was going to go from $1 to $1.05, the portion of Bridgetown's tax rate that's $1 would go to $1.05. The 72 cents would remain the same, but they're still just general revenue, both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if it was that or that Bridgetown's community rate was set at, say, $1.72, and if we brought the community up 5 cents, it would still stay at $1.72 unless we...
That's right. Good question. Yeah.
I just want to be clear that it has to mention, the community or the municipal office in Bridgetown. But what I'm referring to is just not necessarily the office, it's other services within the town of Bridgetown. The county office is only one part of that whole thing.
I do think this will be the last comment, okay? We're on the amendment.
This isn't an amendment, but what I wanted to make a point of, we drifted back to the original motion and we're not discussing the amendment. We should be voting on the amendment.
That's where I want
before we go back to that.
Yeah. So, can you read the amendment?
It was moved by Councillor Bardo, seconded by Councillor Morrison, to amend the motion by adding a breakdown of total expenses.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Can we have the motion now? Anybody else want to speak further on the motion as amended? Would you read the motion as amended then?
I can try.
Well, it's better to try now than when you're at home.
Just kind of scroll a bit here. I'm going to take it from here because I was trying to take it as he was speaking, but I'll read it from here. So it was moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Longmire, to request the CAO to provide a detailed report on the Bridgetown community rate to February, let me just change that there, because that was supposed to be February Committee of the Whole, to include background information a list of the expenses paid from the tax revenue generated from the rates during the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2020, and the costs associated with each expense, information on when these rates will increase or cease, and a breakdown of total expenses.
Okay, the motion's been read. I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Next is one I put on the agenda. This is the update on the Margarettsville water supply. And all I want to do is request a staff report with respect to the status of the water supply for the Margarettsville area. My understanding, and I think this came up at the committee of the nominating committee meeting, that we spent a lot of money trucking water up to Margarettsville this summer, and there were attempts in previous years to try and purchase some land around a lake up there for a water supply, and that kind of people, if there was a committee at one time to work on that, and it kind of disappeared. And all I want to do is ask for a staff report with respect to the situation for the Margarettsville water supply for, say, February. That's all I'm looking for. Just so we can bring it forward and find out if we can do something about it or not. So, can I make a motion?
No.
Would someone move that? Go ahead.
I move that a detailed report on an update of the Margarettsville water supply be given the committee of the whole on February.
February's fine, yeah, February.
And that would include the full cost of trucking water there this summer.
Yeah. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Morrison, discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, remuneration for warden, deputy warden, and councillor. That was something I put on that I found out about, and we can defer that till Friday. So I'll ask somebody to move that we defer that item to Friday. Councillor Prout, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Since it's an ageist discriminatory measure, so it'll age even more.
The Hillside Drive water main.
Yes. I asked that to be in on there. There's a agreement in place between federal, provincial, and the residents on Hillside Drive for upgrading their water main. And I had not heard the action on it. Since I had that put on the agenda, I did get a little more information from the CAO that UARB has moved along more to recommending and finalizing the legal descriptions or whatever. It's been holding it up for the last year and a half, I guess, in July of 2019 that original agreements were in place, but the residents are a little concerned if it's ever going to go to tender. So I just want to follow through on that, and if necessary, make a motion to get staff to provide an updated report if we can't receive that today.
I can verbally give you an update if you like.
Fine. Is that fine with me?
Sure. Yeah, it's all recorded so that we...
Yeah, so it's been a real complicated project. Annapolis Royal was the original applicant back in 2019, and on the day before the application's deadline was submitted, Annapolis Royal said they were pulling out of the application, and they went to the province and asked the province if we would take it on. So then we became the new applicant on the last day. Part of the problem is that Annapolis Royal is the utility right now that's providing water to Hillside Drive, but they were a community co-op. They created their own water system, and it's old and they don't have any pressure. In some cases their water just dribbles out of their tap. So they really wanted to get this fixed up. So the province and the feds got behind Hillside Drive with Annapolis Royal on this application. Annapolis Royal was to be the utility. At the last day, they wanted us to take it. We said, look, if we take it, we'll have to be the utility, but you realize you're going to lose revenue. They were fine. We proceeded. As we were moving to get the final approvals from the UARB, we had stated that Annapolis Royal was well aware of the project and they were in agreement. Leading up to the final decision, the UARB asked Annapolis Royal what their position was on it, or Annapolis Royal saw it on the webpage. One of the two things, Annapolis Royal wrote a letter saying they knew nothing about it and they did not support it, and they asked the county to sign a separate agreement for the wheeling rate to transport water from Annapolis County's water utility that comes from Granville Ferry to Annapolis Royal. They have to get a wheeling rate from the entrance of Annapolis Royal to where it would exit from Annapolis Royal to Hillside Drive. That wheeling rate, they were charging $5,000. Jerry Eisner and the people that are responsible for the rate study calculated the wheeling rate to be less than $500. And so we said we couldn't sign the wheeling rate for that amount, and that only the UARB is allowed to set a rate. But Annapolis Royal is allowed to have an agreement to permit us to use it. So we had to merge those two things in the last few months, and we were almost there. About a month ago, we agreed at a hearing of the UARB. The UARB wrote down their interpretation of what was to be in place, and they sent it out, and we agreed. Annapolis Royal redrafted the agreement, but there were still some clauses in the agreement that wouldn't guarantee for sure that they couldn't stop us from going through Annapolis Royal. And the UARB says, look, that's not, you can't do that because you're going to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on Hillside Drive, and they have to be guaranteed water. So they were asked they wrote their interpretation of it again, and they asked both Annapolis County and Annapolis Royal if they agreed with the interpretation. I wrote back and said I agreed with their interpretation, but I haven't heard from Annapolis Royal yet. As soon as Annapolis Royal says that they agree with the interpretation, which I believe is what they'll do, then the UARB approves the project. You cannot fund a project, or you can't start a project for water over $250,000 unless it's approved by the UARB. So that's part of the reason why it hasn't been tendered. But this is a good time of year. I think, I don't know if we want to take a risk on it before the UARB approves it, but we could put a tender out in short order, could we not, Steve?
The tender documents are ready to go.
Yeah.
I think whether we issue the tender in mid-December or the beginning of January, we're not going to gain anything over the Christmas season, is my opinion. So I think if we give the opportunity for the URB to work its rate, and a tender is just a tender. We don't necessarily have to award either. It's something really sideways. But it's ready to roll whenever we get the green light. We do have, there's an easement that we need to get exercised to. There's an easement from the hillside property bringing the main oil from Highway 8, but there's a handshake
on another one,
on the property from Highway 8 over to Hillside. So we've got to get that straightened out.
I did receive a copy of a deed that I'll show you later, maybe, that it's helpful.
Yeah.
It sounds like you might not have it. It states about water delivery across that property.
If you've got that, that would...
Tony Harvey has it.
Can we
We don't know that.
come online here? So where are we on this?
I would think that if we're striking distance, is it in order now for the county to send a letter to the town requesting them to respond ASAP so that we can move on with that? And if we do put it tender, like Steve said, we have to necessarily start work, but at least we'd have our ducks in line and be prepared for an early construction and maybe take advantage of some of the off-season monetary advantage to do the project then.
We're ready now.
So there's not a motion on the floor, is there? So I think, can we put a motion on the floor?
I'm not sure exactly at the committee of the whole what I can say for a motion to
You'd be recommending it to council.
Recommend to council.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to recommend to council to proceed as soon as possible with the tendering of the Hillside Drive water main replacement project.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Okay, Deputy Warden seconds it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Do I need to put a motion or request for following through with Annapolis Oil, or it's just automatic?
It's the UARB handles that, and they have to respond. So if they haven't responded, and I don't recall receiving an email that they have, but they were given a deadline, and the deadline's not up yet. I responded the first day I received it, which was the day after you called me. So I feel that it shouldn't take long, but it's totally in the UARB's hands.
As long as we can light fire under them after that deadline expires.
Okay, the next number P, in-camera portion of November 19th council. That's related to S, Gordonston Report Notice of Motion for Council. So those are both from me, and they're both essentially just a notice of motion. And the background is simply that at the council meeting that we had last month, we went in camera to receive a report on Gordonston, and there were some documents attached to the report, and we went in camera on the basis that it was contract negotiations, and we weren't negotiating any contracts in camera. And there were documents there that I want to be able to share with the residents of the county. I guess because they came in camera, I can't. So I first sent a note to the clerk saying I bring a motion to rescind the motion to go in camera. We had an academic argument, the clerk and I, and so I decided that the second motion is simply that I would bring a further motion that whatever documents were disclosed in camera could be made public, and we can debate that at the council. This is just a notice of motion that I'll be bringing that up at council so that we can be transparent and communicate to our residents about what we've learned about what we have learned about the Gordonston project. Next is the Equal Opportunity Employer Policy.
Yes, I'll put that on. Mr. Warden. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I put that on there when we were talking about the hiring. We went over our hiring policy. I just feel that we have a large amount of people moving to our county, and with that, they bring expertise. And I just felt that we should have a equal opportunity employer policy, so that people that are here, they may not want a full-time job, but they may be coming from a retirement job that they did, zoning, and worked within other jurisdictions on that. Maybe they would jump to the opportunity to have a 6-month term job. Maybe they're not looking for full-time. So I just feel that any job for our county should be advertised and everyone have the equal opportunity to participate in the opportunity to take on those jobs. When I looked up other counties, Kings County has got an equal opportunity employer policy. And I didn't know if it was something that staff would want to kind of look at it and see if we need something like that. But I just disagree with the hiring policy that we don't always use the ability of hiring individuals and putting it out for the public to have opportunity to do it. Sometimes we just hire term people to come in and summer students to come in and stuff like that. And I just feel that everyone should have an equal opportunity to apply for jobs.
Do you want to make a motion now or ask for a staff report on it, or what's your pleasure?
Well, I'd like to ask staff to look at it, the equal opportunity employers policy.
Okay.
And bring back a report back to us.
Okay, do you have a date for when you'd like to see it?
February.
February? Is there a seconder for the motion? Councilor Longmire. Discussion on the equal opportunity policy, equal employment opportunity. Yes?
I think we have one, and it can be shared. I'm not sure.
I looked through all of our policies and couldn't find it.
Okay, yeah, no, that's...
Look behind you, Councilor Cotw.
Warden, can I just beg for your interruption just for a second? Just got the email from Annapolis Royal on the water. Just come in.
Sure.
Is that okay? So basically, this is what Melanie is saying. Good afternoon, Crystal. Here's an excerpt from our legal advice, section 3. And so we actually added, I think, this paragraph ourselves. I think this is the one that we added. It said, D, termination shall not occur unless 1, Annapolis County no longer needs the service, or 2, agreed upon by both parties, such agreements not unreasonably withheld. So their legal opinion said that's probably strong enough. Then she confirms what the UARB asked, and she says, I have reviewed the board's interpretation offered in its letter of November 30th, 2020, and I'm satisfied that the board's description of the interplay between sections 3, B, C, and D, so that was the board's interpretation that I agreed with as well, and is consistent with the intentions of the parties. In other words, I agree that the town's position should echo the comments of the municipality. So they agree with us.
Yeah, I kind of have to confess I missed the beginning of that to know exactly what it was you were addressing, so maybe you could do that again in a minute. Can you just tell us what you were addressing there?
So this relates to the Hillside Drive approval.
Oh, the Hillside Drive
project.
approval, okay.
And so Melanie Robinson is a financial officer with Annapolis Royal. She wrote the utility on behalf of the town and is basically in agreement. So this should receive approval from the UARB, is what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, falls back in their court for the final decision maker at this point.
Okay, so we're back to Councilor Connell is where we were.
Okay. So I've got a copy of ours. I couldn't find it on our website, but that could be me. But I'll review it, and if I think it needs to come back on to be revised or anything, I'll put it back on.
Did we actually pass that motion?
No, the question wasn't called on it.
So
the motion?
we'll just put it aside for now, or
You just want to withdraw the motion?
you want to withdraw the motion then, Councilor Connell? And the seconder? Ms. Longmire says yes, okay. Okay. Visit to Basin View Center. Councilor Morrison, is that yours?
Thank you. And since I wrote this and I looked at the minutes, we had a motion at last committee of the whole to include a workshop on the Basin View Center. And I rather think that the sooner council can pay a visit and have a workshop on the Basin View Center, the better. And I would like maybe if the first Saturday, Friday, or whenever, that we try to pick a date. I know the folks at the YMCA are very anxious to see you and say hello. I think it's in our best interest.
So shall we do that now? Can we fix a date for a visit and a workshop?
I think the motion was to wait for staff to get the rest of the results they were waiting for before having the
Yes,
workshop.
yes, sorry.
What results were they?
There was another phase of investigation
Oh,
going on
okay.
at the building.
And that's before the workshop. But what about the visit then? Councillor Morrison, you still think the
I think
visit?
it would be good to start out the day with the visit and then come here or wherever and have the workshop.
Oh, have the visit the same day as the workshop?
I would think
Do we know when staff might have the material that we would require for the workshop?
Given the time of year, likely not into January.
Okay.
January. So are we able to fix a date? I guess we'll, things tend to drift away if you don't do it, right?
I guess we have to wait until
But we may or may not get something in January. Shall we just put this on the committee of the whole for January? Is that all right, Councillor Morrison?
Thanks very much.
And so, if we could, the motion is to
I can just add it to the whole.
to discuss the visit to basically the committee of the whole. Is seconder for the motion? Deputy Warden, further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried. It's 5 to 4. Let's do the update on the Gordonston feasibility study.
I think S was lumped in with P.
That's with what? What'd you say?
Item S was lumped in with item P.
Should we discuss?
Warden Parish.
Yeah.
I have a draft.
Oh dear.
So if, typically you don't release this before you release it,
Right.
so I will circulate it, but it would be good to collect it back. And if council wants to take a look at it, this would be confidential. I don't think there's anything in here private. This is an RFP that has to be put out, and it has to be put out in a process that's fair to all that are responding. So it shouldn't be released until it's actually officially posted as an RFP. Okay?
Fine. So you're going to circulate it. We can take it home
Yeah.
and look at it, but keep it confidential at this point.
Whatever you want to do with it. It's just a draft. Council, there was no direction what you wanted in it, so I followed our normal process, and it's a draft. It's not, doesn't have to be the final document.
So we wouldn't have to reconvene to make amendments, would we? Because if you can issue this out of your office?
I can issue it if people are okay with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll have to reconvene council.
So are we taking this with us?
Yes.
We're taking it home, keeping it confidential.
So we want this to go to Friday as well.
Pardon me? I don't know if I'm going to have time to look at it in any detail by Friday. I don't know what to do.
If I can add too, if there are recommendations coming out of Friday's second half of committee of the whole, you will not get your agenda package until Monday.
Yeah.
Because I have to take those, I have to take the recommendations from committee of the whole, and put them for council. And I can't take Friday recommendations and
Yeah.
do them on Thursday night.
I just flipping through this, I'm not going to be able to digest this and have a view on whether to approve it by Friday. Councillor Sheridan?
So could it be a special meeting via Zoom once we all look at this instead of?
Sure.
Would that make it easier?
Yeah. Councillor Redden?
Even to help accommodate Carolyn with our council packages, could we maybe have a split meeting next week as well, so that the stuff that gets covered in committee of the whole Friday is covered in, say, a special meeting next Friday of council?
Oh,
via Zoom? Or is that a big mess?
It just creates a bottleneck for the next meeting, yeah.
No, please.
So, for the purposes of recording what's happened, we've received the draft of the Gordonston feasibility study in confidence, and we are going to review it in a special Zoom meeting. Is that where we are? Would you like to make that motion?
Sure. Let's make a motion once we review it to hold a special Zoom meeting for discussion.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Longmire, further discussion?
When, a special meeting when?
When
Special
called.
council, special committee of the whole, more information, please.
Okay.
Well, I think when called, we can call it on 3 days' notice for a special meeting, Zoom meeting.
Well, so the motion is just to call a meeting later?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I don't have a date because I don't know how long it's going to take for the board and others to go over it. Yeah.
So for example, if when you feel you've had enough time to digest it, whether you're fine with it or not, and if you have any recommendations or changes, you can go ahead and send them to me. You've already voted to do a feasibility study.
Right.
It's just whether or not that's the format you want.
Right.
Okay?
So it has to be passed in a motion.
You send me different information and you want it added or something taken out or whatever, then I'm fully prepared to do whatever you want. I just wasn't sure what exactly you wanted.
But we still have to have another motion to pass this?
You don't have to have a motion to pass that. You've already passed it.
So we don't need the Zoom meeting then?
No, we need a Zoom meeting, and then we need to pass the final document. We need to have a motion that this is the feasibility study we want.
Okay.
Right.
We'll keep that on there.
Yeah.
As a motion.
And if people have comments and they want to communicate them to the CAO before we have our Zoom meeting, maybe it'd be better to copy everybody's comments. Yeah. Councillor Redden?
So to be really proper here, I think what we should have, and to make sure this is very explicit, we should maybe have a motion that we've received this and that we do not want the CAO to move forward with it until we've approved the final draft. Because if I'm recalling the Municipal Government Act correctly, he may move forward with these sorts of acquisitions as part of his office. He's entitled to do that under, that would be 31-2?
Yeah, I'm not going to send it out until council's ready.
I'm not saying that, but that is, if we want to have another, so the other complication becomes, if you want to have another motion to approve the final draft, technically we've already passed a motion to do that. That motion has not been completed, and we are not allowed to pass a second motion about the same thing that is still open. And the motion we passed at the last council meeting is still open because we have not sent away a feasibility study to get this report.
So, would you like to make a motion that we, at this further Zoom meeting that we already have on the floor, that we not send or approve the feasibility, I guess we don't distribute the feasibility study until it's approved at the Zoom meeting?
Yes.
Is that where you, okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
This is,
So
Just-
everyone thinks they're making motions.
Yeah, just a minute. Yeah.
Councillor Sheridan started one, but it wasn't seconded, so it isn't a motion. Councillor Redden tried to amend it, but you can't because it wasn't a motion. So if you can start right from the beginning and make a motion about the Zoom and what you want to accomplish out of it, I would appreciate
it
that.
together.
So we'll start with Councillor Sheridan, I
Technically a
guess.
point of order, but I just should have said
Yeah.
that.
Since you started, Councillor Sheridan, shall you start again?
Okay.
Take a shot at it?
I would like to make a motion to have a Zoom meeting to discuss the feasibility study once amended and, Brad, what did you say about it?
And that the final draft for the feasibility study be approved by council.
Okay, to approve the feasibility study once amended?
So your special
Well,
meeting will be a special council meeting? If you want to make a motion to approve something?
Yes, it would be a
Is that
special
what I'm
council
hearing?
Special, yes.
Yeah.
Special council meeting. Thank you, Carolyn, for your expertise.
And
We appreciate it.
We're approving the RFP.
Yes.
Is it, that's what's called?
Request for
Yeah,
proposal.
Yeah.
request for proposal, yeah. Not the feasibility study as the proposal is for the feasibility.
Right.
Correct.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Longmire?
That was a struggle.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Bartow.
We shouldn't be reading it in as approving a draft. We need to be looking at approving the final.
Well, okay.
That's where things got off track before. You don't want to
Good catch.
have moved ahead on something that's not final.
So you would amend the word draft
Can I
to,
read what I thought I
okay, the clerk says she might have it, so she'll read the motion.
It was moved by Councillor Sheridan, seconded by Councillor Longmire, that once the draft RFP has been reviewed, to hold a special council meeting by Zoom with a date still to be determined in order to approve the final draft.
Is that okay,
That's not
Councillor?
quite what I heard, but that sounds
Okay.
Well, it's not quite exactly what I heard.
I think you've done an excellent job.
You had a good interpretation.
Yeah, maybe the final RFP as opposed to final draft, or final draft of the RFP.
Final draft of the RFP. Okay.
Final revisions.
Discussion on the motion. Discussion on the motion. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. So it's 5 after 4, and we're down to number U. Do I take a motion to adjourn until Friday at 10 o'clock? Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Don,
Mr. Warden, to share some COVID information with you.
Sure.
And the reason that I'd like to share it with you is it may impact how you're able to hold meetings. There is an evolving situation of community spread in the Annapolis Valley that's been identified today. There are 7 new cases, 2 of them are in Berwick. We may be facing additional restrictions. A testing site is being set up in Berwick, a pop-up mobile testing site. There is a rumor that there is also community spread that may possibly have been identified in the Annapolis rural area. I'm waiting to hear on that. The reason that I am apprising you of this is you may wish to just touch on if restrictions come down that you can't meet in person, that you might have to be moved to Zoom.
well, I noticed you had that on the agenda for Friday, right?
Yeah, I did, and just further to what Ms. Campbell has said, I've been keeping stats. When I asked Carolyn to put this on, I said we had over 100 COVID-19 cases. From Monday the 30th to yesterday, we had some, of course, are the same, but we've averaged 113 active cases every day. And for most of those days, the first 5, we had well in excess of 100 active cases in Nova Scotia. And the last 3 were under 100, but I share your concern that...
But they're not active cases.
Yeah, no, they are.
Not new cases.
No, those are...
100 new ones.
No, I say some are the same, you're right. I wasn't, maybe I wasn't clear on that. But we haven't been under... we haven't had an average under 113 in the last 8 days. I fear that, our time of maybe meeting here may be in jeopardy. That's all.
Yeah, I interjected with that.
Deputy Warden?
The case that was brought to Annapolis was there in the middle of November. the ones that they talked about going through Home Hardware and the Baton's and Lucky Rabbit. Well, that was in the middle of November when they went through. That's what the word.
Councillor Sheridan?
If that's the case, then I think we have to look at the whole transit system again if it gets that we're worried. But right now, I don't think we have concern because their concern lies in the city. I have 2 kids in there. I can't go visit them. They can't come to see me. If the restrictions are mostly in there, I do realize Berwick has had a couple cases, but they're trying to contain that. So I guess we have to follow what the province suggests to us, and we can't make that decision. Because then we're open air transit in schools and public places and meetings. And yeah, it gets to be, where do you stop?
So we'll meet here on Friday unless we get word that we can't.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay? A motion to adjourn. Deputy Ward? Oh, we've done that. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.